Good evening. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to join us. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Garrick?
Here.
Pepcorn?
Here.
Preston? Here. Strand?
Here.
Mahoney?
Here. Inspections. Inspection has ordered a new edition of building code books for 2021 and will start evaluating the changes between previous editions and the new codes. Meetings will be set up for those with changes to the Board of Appeals starting in the fall, and the codes will be adopted in 2022. In 2020, the inspections had the second highest year of permitting to date. Building permit valuations came in at more than $720 million, up 84% over 2019. Permits issued were up 6% from 2,024 permits to 2,144, and housing units went up 216% from 492 houses to 1,553 units. Multiple unit apartment buildings saw the highest increase of 502% in units of 172 in 2020 and 1,035 in 2021. The only year higher for permits was 2016, when there was a $1 billion in permits due to the construction of the Sanford Hospital. Construction activity is a great indicator of a thriving and resilient community. Library. All Fargo Public Library locations reopened today. Members of the public will be required to wear a mask within the Fargo Public Library locations at all times, except children under 4 and younger are not required to wear masks in the library. The library's online Winter Readathon continues through February 28th. Readers of all ages can read and earn prizes and chances to enter prize drawings. This year's theme is Reading Gives Us Someplace to Go When We Have to Stay Where We Are. Solid waste. The Solid Waste Department has opened a new residential transfer station at the Fargo landfill. The new service allows Fargo residents to bring items including non-Freon appliances such as dishwashers, washing machines or dryers, cardboard, automated batteries, metal objects such as grills, shelving, lawn mowers, or patio furniture, household garbage including furniture or other large items, and all-in-one recycling at no charge. All the items must be separated into appropriate bins within the building, and an attendant will be available to assist residents. Proof of residency is required to utilize the service. Commercial waste and building materials are not accepted in this program. Finally, police. Today, the Fargo Police Department swore in 2 new officers, Alex Torp and Matthew Wilberson. Both are graduates of the Fargo's department's first academy. We welcome them and wish them the best as they enter the police training program. Let's get to know our new officers on this video made by our communications department.
I'm Matt Wilberson. I'm from Alexandria, Minnesota. I graduated from Alexandria Area High School, then I went to NDSU. I got a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and I minored in emergency management.
My name is Alex Torp. I grew up in New Prague, Minnesota. I went to college up in Grand Forks at the University of North Dakota. Graduated in May of 2020 with a degree in criminal justice.
I want to work in law enforcement because I've always wanted to protect and serve people, and that's always been my dream since I was a little kid, so to me that's always why I've always wanted to do it.
I want to work in law enforcement because I really can't think of another career field where I can impact so many people's lives in so many different ways every day.
I was introduced through the Fargo Police Department through NDSU Criminal Justice Club, and during that time I learned a lot about the department's values and why its mission and what they want to do. And throughout that experience I learned that I wanted to work for them because I saw how they interacted with the community and how they cared about the community.
I want to work for Fargo PD because I really like this area. I like the size, I like the location, but most importantly I like the people in this department. Through going through the academy and just meeting as many officers as I have, this is the kind of department that really cares about its community and about each other, and that's the kind of department that I want to work for. Mostly I'm just looking forward to getting out on the streets, helping as many people as I can, and also listening to my senior officers, taking advice from them, growing as a person and a police officer, and just growing and becoming the officer that Fargo deserves and needs.
I have a dog named Rocky. He's a black lab, 7-year-old. I'm alumni of Farmhouse Fraternity and North Dakota State University, and my favorite movie is Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back.
So I went to school up at UND, and I was actually a track and field athlete there. Athletics has always been a big part of my life, so unfortunately I'm always going to be a Hawks fan, and it probably will never change. In addition to serving with the Fargo Police Department, I'm also a lieutenant in the North Dakota Army National Guard. That's also a big part of my life. I'm also a really big jazz music fan. I've been a trumpet player for a really long time, and jazz music is something that I listen to on a daily basis.
Congratulations to them, and commissioners, if you want to hear Chief Zabowski talk about eagles, have him explain that to you sometime. But he gave us a very good story about eagles and what that means on the shield. So just ask him sometime. Is there a motion to approve the order of agenda?
I so move. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of December 28, 2020 regular meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections or errors in it? Otherwise, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 19?
So move. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Strand,
Yes.
Garrick,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Preston,
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. Now we're going on to resident comments. The rules are on the screens up above. My first speaker is Perry Smithberg. Perry Smithberg. Kelly Nowak. Kelly Nowak. If you'd come to the podium and identify yourself, you have 2.5 minutes.
My name is Kelly Nowak. I live at 802 33rd Avenue North in Fargo. I'm here to discuss a burnt-out building in my cul-de-sac. The building is at 910 33rd Avenue North. I didn't think I'd be speaking now. I thought I'd be speaking at the very end, so I'm not.
We moved you up front so you can speak right away.
I know, so I haven't had a chance to do my deep breathing. The fire occurred on October 10th. 24 families were impacted by that family. They were left homeless due to the fire. The building is a complete loss. My daughter was one of those residents. So were several people that had become friends of mine, having shared the same cul-de-sac. Since October 10th, there have been 8 burglaries in our cul-de-sac. There have been ongoing lootings in the building. As early as December 23rd, we had an individual who was seen by a resident entering the building. Excuse me, I'm very nervous. The Fargo police were called. A canine unit was released. That person was not arrested. The impact of this fire and the lack of accountability on the landlord owner is heartbreaking. I live just kitty corner. I see the building every day. I have been out documenting the destruction of this building from the day that it happened. I have been out in the streets chasing people away. After the fire, we had streams and streams of traffic, onlookers, unloading vans, taking videos and pictures, finding entertainment in other people's tragedies. While those people are standing around looking at their burnt-out building and not knowing where they're going to live, people are taking advantage of every aspect of it, from entertainment to looting. So I reviewed some of the ordinances, and as I was, oops, is that my 2 minutes? Is that all I have?
You got 30 seconds if you want to finish up.
Okay, I guess what I'm asking is that the ordinances be changed to reflect more accountability on behalf of the landlords, to include some sort of a statement that holds them accountable for securing the building. The building is wide open. It has not been secured since October 10th. It is 3 months since the fire. Anybody can enter that building at their free will. So I'm available for further comment. I have a lot more notes. Sorry.
Thank you. Christopher Cohen? Christopher Cohen? Alexander Simon?
My name is Alexander Simon. I've lived in Fargo since the summer of 2002, owned a home in the Hawthorne neighborhood since January of 2005. I hate being here right now. It physically makes me sick to speak in front of people. You've left me no choice. I'm here because I love my wife, my family, my neighbors, and this city. Asymptomatic spread of COVID is a hoax. Masks cannot work against a virus. It's impossible. They're a placebo at best. End the mask mandate immediately. Change one word, required to recommended, make it voluntary again like it used to be. No problem with that. No one gets to take my freedom on a maybe. I'm entitled to due process and court of law. Innocence until proven guilty. I'm not a criminal. I'm no murderer, rapist, or pedophile. I believe in rule of law. Do you? You don't get to come into my business, my home, my car, or my damn body. You can't tell me what to do with my health against my will without due process of law. I'm fine with being inconvenienced when there is proof. There is none. You have enslaved business owners into a deputy police force to enforce your illegal, immoral, and inhumane edict. Wear a mask or you're not a citizen. I will not receive a vaccine, not because I don't believe they'll work. I don't need to. I've had COVID. I'll get it again, I don't mind. I've harmed no one. I'm no criminal. I self-quarantined. Are you God? Can you stop a virus? You can only hope to slow it and manage it. We have treatments now we did not have in March. Allow natural herd immunity to occur. You're hurting my wife. You're hurting my neighbors. You're hurting me. We need to return to the Bill of Rights. We need to return to kindness. We need to return to honesty. Government is not God.
We have a few minutes before public comments. Perhaps I could take a motion on item 23, applications for abatement or refund of taxes. Can I have a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second? It's usually yours, Tony. Is there a second?
I'm not clear on what the motion is.
And are we
Mr. Chair.
doing all of them?
Do you
at
want
one
to take
time?
these up individually?
No. So, Mr. Chair, I think it's just the commission was caught a little off guard. It's just agenda item number 23. And so it's just the list of the tax abatements.
Well, I'm sorry, that's public anyway, because Michael has to explain it. I apologize for that. Because we'll have to have our tax exempt committee talk about that. Well, then we'll go back to just public hearings, the public input, dangerous building, item 21A. Well, I'll go back to that. Thanks, Dave, if you withdraw your motion. Hearing on dangerous building located 717 Third Avenue North, continued from the 7/13/20 regular meeting. Bruce Torelson to explain.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Bruce Tarleson, Inspections here on 3 items on the agenda, 21A, B, and C. First, 21A is report on a previous action that you heard on July 13th of 2020. I'm here to report the project has not been completed and is not in compliance with your order. In our opinion, some demolition has occurred, some minor repair and painting, but even none of that is completed. We have received some updates in the last week on the project. There has been not a lot of communication so far from the owner or the owner's rep. We have received an update on a punch list of items to be done. I received that on January 5th. It's got about 8 items with no completion date on it. And 2 of them show spring of 2021. So even in those, there's no indication of completion. In your packet, you did receive, and we received, the information from the owner's rep. There's a lot of pictures and a lot of words on that. But I'm here to inform you that even this work is not completed. I can truly say there is nothing that is 100% done. And I'll explain that. Even if you take this picture, it does not show the back of the building, which is not completed. It's not even painted. We received a report from their structural engineer that shows it's not completed and future work to be inspected even by that structural engineer. The front of the packet, you have the motion, our suggested motion for consideration, and I ask that you consider that after hearing all testimony. I see the owner's rep is here today, and I believe the owner is here. We sent notices to all parties involved. I was going to point out the lack of the owner's responsibility for the last year, but I do see he's here so he can speak for himself. We have seen some progress, but not what Kilburn Group has promised. This is the timeline. I'm going to skip all the stuff from the previous commission meeting unless it needs to be brought up. The dangerous building was really heard on July 3rd, 2020, and you acted at that time. Today, after 2 years, we're starting our current action and the building's not complete. The items to be completed are, there are 2 permits taken out since the original hearing in July. The first was taken out on August 13th. It's for a demolition permit, which is to pick up the building, and remove the rear portion of the building, pick it up, move it, and get ready for an anticipated new foundation. That permit was not completed. The second permit was taken out approximately 3 months after the hearing, on October 14th, 2020. I want to remind you of Kilburn's statement at that July 13th hearing. They said, I quote, "A contractor has been hired and the work has begun." That permit appeared to be enough to bring the structure up to code compliance, or at least the exterior, so it looked like something was done. But even that is not complete. We don't know anything about the interior of this building, the use of the building, and the permit is not complete. During that second permit, Kilburn contacted us and requested to have their name taken off the permit. I kind of understand why, but we did tell them, because of the commission action, we needed to have a permit and completion by a certain date. We told them if the owner came in to go to permit, we would void theirs, and there was no action after that time. During the previous commission meeting, you'll remember the issue of funding coming up. I believe one of you brought it up. I'm going to remind you of the statement Kilburn made. I quote, "Kilburn Group can commit to the schedule, can design and budget for phase 1, which is to relocate, secure, preserve the office with a budget of $125,000, comprised of owner's money and private donation." We haven't seen that come to fruition. The uncompleted work, summary, basement structural bracing, rotten floor joists, column repair, siding, insulation, mechanical, plumbing, electrical, junk in the yard, and I won't list it all. The building is still infested with pigeons. There's holes in the exterior to the interior. There's vehicles parked on the grass. Inspections are not complete. And the use of this building is still unknown. We don't even know what it's going to be used for. In your packet, you'll see the pictures showing the current condition. They're going to be a little different than Kilburn Group's because they show previous pictures. And we decided, due to inaction, to take this action at this time. I'll take any questions you have and yield the floor. Thank you.
Any questions by commissioners? Public, is there anybody in public who wishes to speak to this dangerous building? I see the owner is here. Somebody else want to speak for him? Please come to the podium.
Hi, good evening. Let me first say that I'm dressed very casually because my water heater blew up over the weekend and I'm mopping up the debris while the plumbers are there. I'll say simply that the building fell into a state of very poor repair because I made a poor judgment and rented it to some students when I was going away from town on a developmental leave. They skipped town, skipped the rent, and when I got back, I didn't realize the damage that they had done to it. They had had a party on the roof, and in the spring, the punctures that they created in the membrane roof caused a significant amount of damage, for which, unfortunately, I did not have insurance to cover. And I've been working on plans for some time to rehabilitate the building because it's important. And I can appreciate Mr. Terrelson and Mr. Thompson's need to treat buildings equitably. And I appreciate that because I don't think historically that's always been the case in Fargo. Sorry about that. What I'd like to make briefly is a case that all buildings are not created equal and that having written the nomination to create the historic district that this is the centerpiece of, and presented it to the Fargo Historic Preservation Commission, with their approval, presenting it to the State Historic Sites Review Board, and with their approval, it being forwarded to the National Register in Washington, and they only requested one minor change. What I'm hoping is that you will let me complete this process and rehabilitate the building and prepare it to be handed on to the next generation. I have a birthday coming up on Sunday. I'll be 76, and I feel an urgency to finish this project and leave what I guess I would be vain enough to call a legacy in Fargo, and to show that I in fact respect this building far more than would seem to have been the case. Now, I'd like to introduce quickly Heather McCord, who has been working with me as a coordinator on the project.
Mayor, Ron, before you leave, excuse me.
Yes.
Would you tell us why this is a historic building? Not everybody understands the historic nature. And to say it is one thing, but tell us why it's historic.
Thank you. Oh boy, you just asked a big question, John. When I came to Fargo 49 and a half years ago, I'm about to finish my 50th year of teaching at NDSU. And I was curious about who the architects were here who had come so early, especially during Dakota Territory. So I started putting together a database, and that database is now being maintained by the NDSU library and is on their website, which I've given it to them. Among the earliest architects were Hancock brothers, whose names you probably know, George and Walter. And arriving in 1899 and staying until about 1911 was Milton Earl Beebe, who came here actually rather late in life and came in order to take advantage of Fargo's very liberal divorce laws. Stayed for about 11 or 12 years, produced a phenomenal amount of work extending all the way from Park Rapids out to Minot and beyond. I had to research and document all of that work as much as I could find for the National Register nomination, which, by the way, is online. You can look at it. In 1903, Beebe acquired 2 lots. They were lots 11 and 12 of Block 10 of Robert's Addition. He built 2 twin rental properties, one of which is occupied by Paul Gley, the chair of the Preservation Commission. The next year, Beebe bought another lot, picked a house up and moved it, which is the house that I live in at 715 3rd Avenue North. And then in 1906, everyone believes that this was the first building on the site. It's actually the last building on the site, the quarter block, as his office. He had had an office in the Walker Brothers and Hardy building. There had been a fire, and he built the office and moved out of downtown. He lived in one of those houses, and so of the 6 properties, 4 were designed by Beebe, and 2 others were renovated by Beebe. He left town about 1911 and sold it off very piecemeal so that the Recorder of Deeds has these all recorded in meets and bounds because they aren't the lots that were originally a part of that plat. And so Beebe's an important regional architect, and that's the case that we made in the National Register nomination and why it was requested by the Fargo Historic Preservation Commission and why it was approved by them and passed on to Bismarck and then on to Washington. Sorry for taking more time than I'm entitled.
Commissioner Preston?
Yeah, Mr. Ramsey, I understand, I remember from the last session back in July that there had been discussion about getting a nonprofit established and seeking grant funding. How far along, or have you achieved that?
I'm sorry, my hearing is going, and I did not hear that entirely. Thank you.
In
She's
July.
wondering about grant funding that for it, or
oh.
where's your funding done?
And
grant
if you've got the nonprofit established.
I have not sought grant monies from the federal government. Those, because it's on the register, it would qualify for that. I'm intent on doing this myself. I have to date invested $27,000 of my own money, which I've taken out of my 401k retirement program. I'm prepared to put in another $75,000, and I have had offers of financial contributions. We're creating a 501c3 nonprofit that will eventually own the building, and as soon as the 501c3 is in place, I have a gift from John Cly of $25,000, and I have the promise, quote unquote, from someone else for double that amount. So we should be able to cover the budget to take this building back to the condition that it had when Beebe lived next door and worked in this building. I'm not very good at grant writing. I would probably need to find a consultant to help me walk through that process. So I no, I have not sought government funding. I have happily had 3 people who have made substantial contributions to the project, and I'm pleased to say all 3 of them are former students of mine. In 49 and a half years, you see a lot of faces, and you make a lot of friends. And these are people that I know and who know me and believe that the preservation of this building is important to understanding Fargo history and the Red River Valley. So Ms. McCord, if she's still got some time, will show you what we've done, and I think we've done more than has been suggested. And by the way, the vehicle that is parked on the grass is not parked on the grass, it is a gravel driveway. And I parked there when I lived in that house for 20 years, and nobody ever told me I couldn't park on my own gravel.
Thank you. Good evening, mayors and commissioner. Thank you, Ron, for introducing me. So I do have a presentation. I did send a series of photographs and a timeline earlier in the week, but on Friday I found a list online that was part of today's commission meeting, so I thought I would address more specifically the things that Bruce had talked about. So our first picture is the current state that it's in now, and this picture is, from July when we first had our meeting. And I think it's a lot more than cosmetic. However, perhaps the most important thing, and I think it's been alluded many times that this is a Kilbourne project and that perhaps I have misled everybody into thinking, and it truly is a Ron Ramsey project. It is, he is the owner, he is paying for everything with cash, it is his money. I am really just acting as a volunteer and attempting to manage it with, the only contribution that Kilbourne has made is my time. So my voluntary actions are free of charge, and what I would just like to show to reinforce that, because I have heard this many, many times, that I have misled everyone, and that perhaps Ron should have gotten a lot further along if he had the weight and the breadth of Kilbourne Group behind him, but it isn't a Kilbourne Group project, it is a Ron Ramsey project. And he is teaching full-time at the age of 75 and is doing it on his own. So as you can see from the building permit summary, the property owner is listed as Ron. We stated what we plan to do. The contractor line has been left blank, and it has been stated that the work is being performed by the property owner. So I don't know how specifically, I'm gonna go really fast through the complaints and how we rectified them. So the first was, and these were all part of the original dangerous building action, which we attempted to rectify, and there were 5 points. Missing windows and doors, or multiple windows and doors were boarded up. That was completed. There were west-facing doors that are within a couple of feet of the neighbor, where there's a 2-story structure. So, and the interior of those windows, it is sheetrock. So we did not replace those windows, but we did infill them with plywood and neatly painted them. The pillar on the porch has been reinstalled. There was some talk that the capital at the top has not been reinstalled. That will take some more craftsman work, but it is not a load-bearing pillar, and it has been reinstalled and inspected by our structural engineer. The foundation on the interior has been completely replaced. Basically, the basement interior, we constructed 4 walls on the inside, 2x4 walls that are mimicking, or just kind of like on the inside face of the existing CMU foundation. And that final inspection was also completed by Sandman engineers. In total, we had 5 structural engineer visits and 4 reports that were sent to the city. The infestation, we feel, has been taken care of, and we're talking about pigeons. And I think anybody who has tried to eradicate pigeons knows that it can be a lengthy process, and we have made great strides, but there are still a few pigeons that Midwest Pest Control continues to visit and will continue to visit until they are eradicated. So far, there have been 2 site visits. The exterior obviously has been scraped, primed, and painted, with the exception of the north wall, which Bruce has alluded to as not being complete. It does have exterior siding. It has not been painted. The weather got away from us, so we were not able to, it is exterior siding. It is considered to be waterproof. Some would accept it as not needing to have that weather barrier. However, we can paint that fairly easily. So in the back, there was a non-historic addition that was demolished and the foundation was excavated. The brick foundation, the bricks were salvaged. They're 120-year-old bricks. Some might find that valuable. I think Ron does value that. So those bricks are in the yard. That's one of the violations, is that there's junk in the yard. So there's some salvage bricks on a pallet in the backyard. Railroad ties was another violation that was listed, and those are railroad ties that have been there since the 1980s, and they delineate the driveway from the row of trees. These are the holes that were considered a violation of the exterior to the interior, so those have all been filled in. The fascia and the soffit did have some penetrations that have all been filled in. This portion of the fascia also had a bit of a part missing that was filled in. So we don't feel that there's any opportunity for pigeons to enter the structure. However, if you look at the top of the columns, they do like to sit there, and those spike strips do need to be added. Here is an invoice from Midwest Pest Control. I believe this is the vehicle that's parked on the grass that is called a violation. This is a gravel driveway. It is the carpenter's work truck. It is licensed and registered and does run. It isn't filled with junk. Sometimes it is filled with junk because it does go to the landfill or to the recycling center, but it truly is the carpenter's work truck, and it is parked in a driveway. This is another violation, which is called unpermitted temporary storage. So the items that were in the Milton Beebe structure were moved into a temporary storage while work occurred. That temporary storage is not on the property that we're discussing today. We have a very complete timeline. I will say one thing. Bruce has talked about the use and what the building intends to be in the future. That is what I told the city 6 months ago that we could do, we were not able to do. We had intended to relocate, pick up the building, relocate it, put it on a new foundation. There have not been services or utilities since the 1990s, electric, gas, water. We realized that we had made a poor choice. I made a poor choice in thinking that we could build a new basement and a new foundation and set an unheated structure on it over a North Dakota winter. And we didn't realize that until after I had talked at the last city commission meeting. So I did send an email to everybody and let them know that we will not be able to relocate the structure this fall, but we can, we attempted at that point to, I don't know how deep we want to get into the timeline, but at that point, we were told that's unacceptable. We tried to change the use to storage because it literally is a 20 by 20 wood structure with no utility.
I think the question we just want to ask you,
Yeah.
we thought you were going to do some things that haven't happened. It's actually coming to the commission to have as a dangerous building to tear it down. The commissioners would like to know, are you going to finish the rehab in reasonable time, next 6 months? Is that the intent of your group?
We will not be able to relocate the building in the next 6 months.
Next 8 months?
Well, we would be able to start relocation of the building. Is that what was, the relocation of the building was what the owner had planned and what I passed on and what we were able to do? Is that part of the dangerous building action?
Bruce, in order to come in compliance, what would they have to do?
It's hard to answer that question because there is so much. Kilburn Group took out 2 permits. Their name is on them, both of them. She said it wasn't. They are. They're responsible. Though both of those permits were voided today due to your action and your deadline. A new permit needs to be taken out, and we need some specifics on that permit if they're to move forward. And it's really up to you. We brought this here because we had already been dealing with this property for 2 years. That's why we brought it last time.
So if you brought it to us, is this as a dangerous building, tear it down?
That's my suggestion because I knew we would be back here today. If you made it 6 months again, I feel we'd be back in here again in 6 months, and she
Okay.
just proved that. So you need to decide, how far do you want to go? How long do you want to wait? I believe there's a neighbor here to speak, that she's been involved in this property for a decade, and maybe we get something for the neighborhood, some commitment that you can live with.
Well, I think it would be all of the items that were listed as part of the dangerous building, and there were five items. All of those items have been rectified. The only thing that didn't happen, that I said would happen at the last city commission meeting, was that the building would be moved, which has nothing to do with the dangerous building.
It has everything to do with it. If
Let's
you
not
would
get
have
into
acted-
debate here. I'll close public hearings. We'll go into staff discussion now. You've given us enough data. We like that. That's good. Mr. Preston?
I just have a question about the moving of the building. I'm assuming that's got something to do with the foundation. The foundation is not up to par, I would assume. And the
No, that isn't-
movement of
that
the
is-
building would perhaps provide that or not?
The existing foundation was repaired to a point. We were never called for an inspection on that, so we don't know.
Okay.
But we received some information on Friday that something's been done. So we don't even know because we haven't had an inspection yet. So there's been pieces and parts that were done. We don't know the complete story, but we know it's not finished.
Mr. Bitcoin?
So, Mr. Chair, they've done a lot of good, it looks way better than it did 6 months ago. That's the one thing I will say. They've done more work in the last 6 months than they've done in the last 25 years. And one of the reasons I supported it at the beginning was because Kilbourne made a commitment. And to me, their financial wherewithal, I assumed, was going to be behind it. So I was a lot more optimistic that something would be done. But to me, it's obvious. It's just going to be drips and drabs, and it'll go on forever. And there's excuses. You can make excuses forever and ever. The sad thing is, it's a piece of art, and to have it demolished would be sad. But something has to be done. I don't believe the current owner. I don't believe anything he says because he's owned it for how many years. And he's let it fall into this state of repair. So it's a very sad thing. And if there's something we can do saying we can save it, but as far as letting this go like this with $5,000, $20,000, that's not acceptable. And I don't believe it's safe. And so that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Mr. Strand?
Thank you. We just recently endorsed and approved a historic overlay for, I think, the 7th district in town. I have a question, whoever can answer it. What protection is there in a historic overlay? Here we have a potential city action to potentially order the demolition of a historic building, and I really commend your department. And we have a list of buildings we're going through, Bruce, and thank you for your work. And you have the support of the City Commission. However, we don't every day talk about demolishing historic buildings. That's where I'm at. I will not easily vote to demolish a historic building, period. We've had too much of this in this town. We have parking lots everywhere where there used to be historic buildings. Is that an improvement?
Mr. Preston?
If I could address that a bit. Historic buildings are assessed or evaluated or valued on what percentage of their value is required to refurbish and to get them up to par. Second item is what is going to be the use afterward. And yes, I love this building. I love old buildings, but it is such a strange little building. I don't know what it's going to be after they're all done. So just having an empty building doesn't necessarily increase its historic value in my mind. And I have to also say, I am really disappointed because a lot of what Mr. Ramsey was saying, we heard 6 months ago. And not seeing the advance that needed to happen. And I remember saying 6 months ago, what are we going to do if there's small movement on this building and it's not completed, and here we are. That's exactly where we're at.
Commissioner Pipcorn.
So, Mr. Chair, just real quick, I mean, this is the owner's fault, John. It's not the city's. We have a negligent property owner, and the ironic thing is he's involved in architecture, should be embarrassed. This is a treasure, and under his ownership, it's totally been destroyed on his watch. And so we're all doing our job. I think it would be great if the city could take it over, if he could sell it, because to me, he doesn't deserve to have it. This is historic treasure, and he's let it be destroyed under his watch. So it's very sad. It's a sad state of affairs.
Mr. Gehrig.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. And John, to your point, I don't like the government coming in and telling you what to do with your property, or we're going to demolish your property or anything like that. That hurts me. I don't like that at all. But if this was my house, it would have been demolished years ago, a long time ago, because my house isn't as valuable as someone else's house for some reason. That's why I don't like historic overlays. It tells people that your property is better than my property, just given the age or the location, or pick a subject, pick a valuation. I don't like that. If we are going to have these laws in place, they need to be held consistently, especially when we're dealing with people's properties. And as much as I hate that we have a lot of these in place, this is exactly, the ordinances are exactly in line for these type of cases where these buildings sit looking like this and being dangerous like this for decades in some cases. So I agree with you. I don't want to do it either. But if you're not going to enforce this one, then how can you enforce the next one?
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman,
Preston.
I think there is a neighbor probably on the line that wants to testify. Is there?
Bruce,
She
did
said
you have somebody that wanted
here?
to testify?
I would just like to say one thing, because I think the idea that it's a dangerous building, we do have a very reputable structural engineer who has submitted 4 reports and has made 5 visits. The reason that Bruce is saying that it is incomplete is because he is saying it has the moving of the building has not been reported. But absolutely, the structural engineer has.
And he submitted those reports to our
Yes.
office?
Yes.
You have those, Bruce?
Well, that changed. That changed between permit 1 and permit 2. We don't really
Well,
know
permit
what
1 was
is
the
going to be done
demolition.
right now because both permits are still active. Until today, we voided them so we can get a new permit and find out what the owners or the rep wants to do.
But anything that deemed it a dangerous building has been rectified.
Okay, as far as the city knows, we don't know that. Is that correct?
The commission never acted on the dangerous building, so there is no real dangerous building. If we had acted on that case, then we would have authority to require full compliance on this building with everything
Okay.
due to the dangerous building action. But no action was taken other than a delay from last time.
Okay.
So to sit and state the items, we can't do it until we get done. Code compliant building, that's what we're looking for.
Can I have the neighbor, please?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Kay Schwartzwalter. My husband, Paul Glei, and I are neighbors to 717 3rd Avenue North, and I speak for both of us. There have been improvements to the structure, and for that, we are grateful. However, as neighbors, we are caught between a rock and a hard place. If the city signs off, there is no pressure on the property owner to continue bringing it up to code unless we formally complain, which we do not want to do. It took more than 20 years of neglect, followed by condemnation, before anything was done. It is telling that after being granted a 6-month extension, only the minimum was done. Not even the pigeon nests were removed, and now they continue to roost and blight on our properties as well. While we agree that it is an important historic building, and we had hoped that it could be preserved, at this time we remain unconvinced that work on the project will continue. We implore you that if you allow this structure to remain, you implement a mechanism that ensures preservation will continue in a timely manner and that the building and grounds will not be allowed to deteriorate again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Preston?
Bruce, could you run through, and I apologize, I did not realize what you just kind of intimated. If we declare this a dangerous building, what's the process that happens after that?
If you did that, there's a 6-week process, approximately. We order city attorney to do findings of fact
Okay.
that we did indeed find the dangerous building. And then there's a 10-day appeal period and a 30-day appeal period to county court. That has happened in the past. Remember a previous case? That case ended up going to Supreme Court. We were working on it. City attorney was working on it. We won that case. Took about another 6 to 8 months to get that building to come down. So within the 6-week period, we could be moving.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could just say, I do think we need to keep the feet to the fire on this. And it sounds like it would still be possible to save the building if they move fast. And that's why I think I would support this declaration.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, if that's a motion.
That's a motion.
I'll second it.
Further discussion?
The motion was to declare it a dangerous building. Okay.
Mr. Strand?
I'm just really not sure what to say when we're going to participate in demolishing history without giving it our best. You know, let's look at Fargo and how many historic buildings we've lost to previous decision makers. And now we're going to do it. I move that we amend that motion to extend it for 7 months.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Hearing no second, the amendment does not pass. Commissioner Gregg?
And the reason I don't second it, John, is because I think we were just told that they weren't going to do anything in that time frame. So we can extend it, sure, but if they don't do any further work, that would negate this, and I don't see the value.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. President?
So Bruce, if they provide the documentation of what has been done and those inspections are done, and in fact, the structure has been brought up to code, the demolition would not happen. Is that correct?
Well, we're kind of past that point, I believe, right now. We were here 6 months ago to declare it a dangerous building. 6-month reprieve. In my eyes, your deadline was not made. So if you can choose to do 2 different things. You declare it a dangerous building. After the 6-week period, city attorney does its work. The deadlines are passed for appeal. Then we can order it demolished. We can actually be ready by that deadline. The other option is to do the extension and propose your own deadline. Even though the representative didn't say they could do it in that time frame, we can all see what that group can do around this city. I do believe that it could have been done in the 6 months. We know what they can do. We can see it everywhere. So you can choose which way you go.
May I say something?
Mr.
We're
Chairman,
actually done with public hearing.
if I could, a follow-up question. So through the appeal process, if they came forward and showed the documentation, then at that point, does that come back to the city? No, it doesn't?
No, not to you. No, you've done your job.
Where does the appeal go to?
To district court?
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you going to say you can keep to a time deadline? Is that what you wanted to speak to?
I was going to ask if, when Commissioner Preston asked me if we could do it in the next few months, are you asking if we can move the building and build a foundation starting in January in the next 6 weeks? I'm unclear if the sticking point is that it was not relocated, Or is the sticking point that it is no longer a dangerous building and the structure is secure? Is it the structure that is making it a dangerous building and the items that were listed in the last complaint?
It's more than just that, it's the use. What's gonna happen to this building on the commission-imposed deadline that building can be used by people, by the public, by the owner? How is it gonna be used?
So when because we are not able to make it a habitable or an occupiable space in the 6 months,
No,
We-
you could choose to your storage. You did that previously. You said it's gonna
We
be
tried-
storage. We agreed to that, and that's the way it could have gone.
well, we did do that, and it went on, it was passed on to planning. Planning classified it as freight, as warehouse and freight moving, and at that time inspections then informed me that it would be classified as a commercial building, and we need to have fire sprinkler, ADA, elevators, ramps. So we abandoned the change of use permit. If we can classify it as storage and not have it classified as a commercial building, that's perfect. Yes, we absolutely would like to pursue that.
We would like those answers from the owner or the owner's rep. Those are all questions. They're not questions to me. They need to answer those questions. We need to know what they're gonna do. What's the use? Do you need ramps? Do you need
Can they
sprinklers?
qualify
That's
as a
not-
storage building?
Yes, they can. We
with
were gonna
no
ready to do that
sprinklers?
previously,
No sprinklers, nothing else in there, nothing commercial.
if that's what they choose.
Mr. Strand,
Mayor, I move that
there's a motion on the floor, so
Yes.
you're do amendment, okay?
I move that we delay that motion action until our next meeting to give the property owner and the representatives a moment in time to answer these questions diligently.
Is there a second?
That's an amendment, John?
Yes.
I'll second it.
Second. Discussion.
I have
Commissioner
a
Peppercorn.
question. I have a question for the owner. How long have you owned this building?
1980,
So he's owned
although the
it,
damage to it is much more recent than that.
anyway, 40 years?
I actually used to live there.
So 40 years, and he's been the owner, so now all of a sudden it's going to change? I'm very skeptical. I hope it does, but I think we need to act and like you said, keep their feet to the fire, because otherwise, 40 years, 6 months that's my two, I think we need to, otherwise why have these rules? And it's not, John, this is not us, it's him. He's the one that let it go downhill, not us. I love that place, man. When my son was born, we drove around and I go, you want to see the coolest house in town? It's a pocket house. He's like, what the hell are you talking about? A pocket house? That's what it is. It's the coolest thing. And he let it go downhill, not us. It's on him.
Commissioner Gary.
And
May
Dave,
may I say something?
I'm sympathetic, Dave, to your point. And we do need to follow, if we're going to follow the procedures, do that. 2 weeks isn't going to be the end of the world. Let's let them answer the question, because if it's not actually a dangerous building, then we probably should follow that rule, right? So let's get all the questions asked and answered in 2 weeks. If they don't do it, then I'm with you. No, that's it for me. Two more weeks, and I think that's okay.
Roll call vote on the amended motion?
Strand?
Yes.
Garrick?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
No.
Preston?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Yes. Now I vote on the first motion, which is it's a dangerous building.
No, now we vote on John's, that was just to amend the motion.
Let's amend the motion, but the dangerous building is on the line, so if they don't come back in 2 weeks, it goes into effect. You basically have asked for 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
To get taken off, basically. So you still have to vote on the first motion that it's a dangerous building.
I don't think that's how it works.
You're delaying execution.
My intent was to delay this action entirely till the next meeting.
Yes, that's what the motion was.
Primary motion Pipcorn had was this or like Preston has, was that it's a dangerous building. You are delaying the action of a dangerous building for
the
2
next
weeks. We still have to vote on the dangerous building. Eric Johnson, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand the confusion. I think it was stated to be an amendment, so Mayor, I think you're correct. I think the result is the same. You're still bringing it back in 2 weeks to determine whether or not to move forward.
Well, I'd say if they don't comply, Bruce has got the right to have it as a dangerous building. If they comply, it comes back. It wouldn't come back if it wasn't complied with.
But I think there's still a report required as to whether they
Well, yeah,
complied.
I would assume that, yeah.
Okay.
So I'd assume we take a vote, Eric, is that correct?
Yes, I think so.
May I make a point of clarification?
No, too late.
No? Yes?
Public is done now, the commission is just arguing how to handle it, so. Any other comments by commissioners? If not, we'll vote, or we'll take roll call on the first vote.
Mayor, could you clarify the motion that's on the table now?
Roulette question?
Well, my original motion was to declare it as a dangerous building. Your amendment then added to be delayed for 2 weeks.
So in my mind, that's been delayed for 2 weeks.
Let's just vote on it.
No.
In either way, it's going to be the same
It
thing.
matters, because you made that motion, he amended your motion to say, we're gonna wait 2 weeks to take that vote.
Let's just vote on it.
So I'm not voting to demolish this right now, I'm voting in 2 weeks, we'll look at it again. And in 2 weeks, if we want to declare it a dangerous building, we will.
But from Commissioner Strand's motion, he's expecting in 2 weeks some action might happen with Inspections Department. Inspection Department has asked that we declare this a dangerous building unless something changes in the next 2 weeks. If you don't comply, it would be a dangerous building. That vote would not have to be taken again.
That's not what the amendment was.
Well, your intent might be that, John, but it's an amendment to the primary motion, which primary motion was it's a dangerous building.
And the motion was amended to decide that in 2 weeks.
Right, that's how I understood it.
Can we read the, what you have as, down of the amendment, please?
It was a motion to declare a dangerous building. Arlette made the motion and Pepcorn second.
And John Strand's motion, can you read that, please?
That was the one to extend it for 7 months.
After that.
After that.
Oh, the second amendment was to bring it back in 2 weeks to give the property owners and representatives a chance to answer these questions diligently.
Mr. Chairman, if I could provide perhaps a solution here, maybe we should have tabled this for 2 weeks.
Same thing.
Yeah, but then we could move on. Either that or let's just vote on this. I mean, either way, it's going to happen in 2 weeks.
There's different understanding of what's gonna happen, though. So
It's going to come before us again, right? The original motion.
that's not what Tim said.
Kimber?
So a public hearing has to be delayed to a date and time certain. So that's what the 2 weeks would allow. Unless you're closing the public hearing.
So if they tabled it to 2 weeks, that allows us to do a public hearing?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yes, if you're tabling it to a date and time certain.
So that might be the accepted amended first motion?
That's why I think we all.
Let's do that. A friendly amendment or something?
Okay. Mr. Preston, would you move to table it for 2 weeks to honor the amended motion?
I so move.
Second.
Is there a second?
Dave, or John.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Okay, roll call vote.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Gehrig?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Okay, Bruce, is this next one going to go us along, or?
Wow.
This one's going to go a
Hearing on
lot
dangerous
faster.
building, 1021, 10th Street North, continued from 12/28/20, regular meeting. Bruce?
We skipped 21B,
Yep.
14, 18.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep.
Hearing on abeyance, because this one's going to be quick.
14 First Avenue North.
Correct. This is our first commercial building that we're bringing in front of the commission. But on Friday, the owner did come in and take out a permit to demo the building. I'm unsure if it's a portion or the whole building, but that does delay this action. So what we would like to see is a motion to continue
Motion to continue.
to May 1st.
May 1st.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Now we go to our next item, is 1021 10th Street North. Continue
Yes,
to
21
1228.
Yes, 21C, dangerous building located at 1021 10th Street North. And this also is continued from the December 28th meeting. And the reason for that is at the 11th hour, we heard from our city attorney that this property was sold or purchased by another owner. They requested that we delay it till today so that we could serve notice on new owners. The property is located directly across the street from Roosevelt School. This house was constructed in 1903. It's approximately 2,000 square foot, and it was most likely sometime later converted into a 4-unit apartment building. This dangerous building case is different than others you've heard due to it being a foreclosure property. In the past, foreclosures have been tending to sit for years until there was a resolution on the foreclosure. That caused many issues such as blight, infestation, junk, unkempt yards, squatters, etc. To determine ownership on a foreclosed property was very difficult for the inspections department. We have found that the foreclosure process can take a long time, many years, and during that time the property, home, or the building gets neglected with little or no attention. For that reason, we're changing how we deal with them, and we've brought this for you today, and we're not going to let them sit for years. The potential owner may be a financial institution such as a bank or mortgage company, and they usually have representation. Some mortgage companies use reps that we end up dealing with, and many of them are not local. The one on this current building is out of Ohio. So we have a hard time finding responsibility for the property. During a foreclosure, the mortgage holder cannot get the property into their name until the foreclosure process is complete, leaving a long gap in time when responsibility gets delayed. After the foreclosure process, a mortgage company that becomes the owner can then decide to sell the property after a redemption period, and again could cause years in delay. As of today, this property is still in the original owner's name, and I checked that today. What we want is any owner to take responsibility for this property. We usually wouldn't act on foreclosures other than they come to our attention, such as a complaint, as this one did. This property has history of years of non-compliant permits, complaints, and rental inspections. This case, we look at it like it's no different than any other one we brought to you. The only difference is the ownership issue. In our opinion, the owner, the mortgagee, and the representative have not taken responsibility in this case. They've allowed squatters to take over the property and make the property condition worse. It has also been used as a dumping ground, and the yard was not maintained. While our contractor was boarding up the house, squatters were running out the back door. Due to these issues, we did not want to let foreclosures sit for years. This property came to inspections as a complaint on August 1st, 2019, so you can see how long we waited to even bring it to you. Find an owner, get responsibility, take care of the building. We took the approach that the building could be repaired because it did look like it could from the exterior. We have had no communication with the actual owner of that building. As of Friday, 2 weeks ago, Friday, we learned of a new owner. I don't even really know with trusts, trustees, mortgage, who owns the building today. We've had many multiple communications with mortgagees, banks, reps, and none of them are really taking responsibility for the property. You will see from the timeline that we gave them an extra 16 months to act on this property. We did have communications at the beginning from an owner's rep from Ohio who said he was going to come here and take care of it, but they never did. You're going to see it on the timeline. We received notification as a complaint. I'm going to summarize this. We provided all required notices and postings. We've done everything we can to notify all owners of this property, including the original owner, the mortgage holder, mortgage representatives. We have had active correspondence with these new owners over the last 2 weeks. They may be here in the room or virtually. The structure was placarded on October 8th, 2019. The Danish building is required. We've monitored ever since. Due to no action by any owners, we're taking this action today. Assessors provided a statement of valuation to attest to the deterioration. Services were disconnected to this property many years ago. Due to no water and power for 10 years, we believe this house has been used by transients with little or no control by the owner. In your packet, you're going to find the pictures of the condition. And we decided to take this action due to all the issues. Your action on this property will allow that same 6-7 week period when we need to do the findings of fact and give the owner time to appeal. So there's still time to take action on this property.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this dangerous building notice?
Yes, this is Craig Ritchie, and I'm representing Merrill Lynch, First Franklin Mortgage Loan Trust, care of Select Portfolio Services, Inc. Can you hear me okay there?
Yep, we can hear you fine, Craig.
Okay, and what I understand, the property was sold on 12/17/2020 at the foreclosure sale, and it was acquired by the bank. Currently, the property is in redemption period, so a homeowner still has time to reclaim the home. No deed has been filed yet. The redemption period ends 2/14/2021. Our client, SPS, who is a service for the bank, has been doing preservation work on this property. And now I got some things here, but to be honest with you, how to get them to you over virtually is going to be somewhat of a problem. But it looks like that your problem that you've been talking about, that sounds like it's a long-standing one, is about to be taken care of. What they're asking me to ask you is like 60 days. Now, if we can have longer, of course, that would be it. Would love that, but looks like that's what's happening. And it looks like the people at this point are on top of it, but it was only sold 12/17/2020. But we only have to wait till 2/14/21 is the redemption period being done. It sounds like that it will be taken care of at that point. It'll be somebody who is reputable who can handle it. They've obviously hired us to go and represent them. I think if we could have a little time on it, and that's what we've been asked to do, and also to get the name of the inspector and that type of thing so they can make contact. And as I think the gentleman said, yeah, they're not local, but they have bought the property based upon it being after the redemption period. So that's our position, and we would ask that could be done.
Bruce, to his comments, what?
He mentioned February 14th, 2021 as the redemption period. We're asking for March 11th as the final date. So
what I have is just notes, and my notes say no deed has been filed yet. The redemption period ends 2/14/2021. If there's a different date, I'm not saying it isn't true, but that's the notes. Those are the notes that I have.
If that's true, our final removal order is March 11th. So the dangerous building action that you take should fit in if the representative has the right dates.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
What is the date again? I'm confused myself.
We have March.
Just fell down the steps where I am here. So could you say that again, please?
March 11th, 2021 is the date we have. There'll be a appeal for 6 weeks to appeal, basically. Bruce?
Yes, the findings of fact will be completed. Will be posted on probably the next commission meeting. And then there's a 30-day period after that. So our final deadline to appeal to district court is February 10th. And deadline for owner to demolish is March 11th. We can take action after that date.
Very good. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I think there was this, did somebody make a motion?
John did, I'll second it.
And if I could just make one comment, it's amazing how all of a sudden, when the inspections department takes action, that people come out of the woodwork. So I have to extend my appreciation to the inspections department for being this assertive. Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Strand?
Yes.
Garrick?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. We're going to take a 5-minute break. We'll come back at 6:20. Okay, call the meeting back to order. Finally getting into planning. The plat of Hancon Addiction and the plat of an unplatted portion of the northeast quarter of the Section 12 Township 139 North, Range 49 West, which is 1425 Main Avenue. Approval recommended by Planning Commission. Donald LaCrest to explain.
Good evening, Commissioners. Donald Kress from the Department of Planning and Development. As the Mayor stated, the Hunka addition here, 1425 Main Avenue, just a very simple plat here. That's an unplatted property up against the railroad. The zoning there is general commercial. And again, just a simple plat to plat it into one lot. The only reason this is before your commission is, as you see there in the hatched area, there's a dedication of right-of-way, which makes it a major plat. Other than that, pretty straightforward. The owner is going to do some future development on it, and we wanted to have that platted when we do that development. Just a couple quick shots of the property. You've all been by here many, many times. Planning Commission recommendation is stated on the screen and in your staff report. The applicant's representative, architect Alyssa Novotny of Dovetail Development, I believe is with us virtually and may wish to address the commission or answer the commission's questions. Again, just a plat here, Commissioners. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in regards to this? Is there anyone virtual who wants to
have one,
speak to
sir.
this? Oh, go ahead. You're up.
My name is Jim Pinovich. I own the property that's across the street for the past 10 years. The federal government has been going to redesign all of Main Avenue, in which means we'll have a turn lane from University to 18th Street, finally. That has not been designed. Now, it was all the meetings I've gone to, they were going to push that 8 to 10 feet, whatever distance it takes to have a turn lane, towards the railroad tracks. My only question is, how will that play with the property that stands there right now?
I have a two-part answer for that. Thank you, Mr. Pinovich. I think we've talked before, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. A two-part answer for that. Part one is we did advise the applicant of that. As Mr. Pinovich noted, that has not been designed yet, but we did advise him that, that Main Avenue redevelopment will be coming very soon, as Mr. Pinovich indicated. And part two is I'm going to ask our city engineer if she had any further comment on that, ma'am. Brenda Derrick, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. We did talk quite in depth with the applicant about there really hasn't been a corridor decision between 25th Street and University. And so we do not know what that impact will be at this time. There were quite a few options that have been discussed, but not a final design layout yet. So at minimum, what we did is we did ask for some additional right-of-way to get that sidewalk on the north side a little safer because it's really tight. So that's really, that was really the best thing we could do right now, not knowing what that is and them being ready to move forward with their project.
Did you have a follow-up question?
I do, and they've been very forthcoming. As the design goes forward, could we ever wait until the highway department has their actual design before this proceeds, or is this just formality?
I guess that would be a legal question. Can we tell someone they can't redevelop their property when we're not at the point that we have a final layout for that corridor? And so, I mean, I guess that's a position I was put in, is I didn't feel we were at a point that we can tell the private property owner that has a vested interest, we can tell them the concerns we have and what might be coming forward, but that we don't have that final design yet to stop that redevelopment.
So Donald, the planning department would like this done to guarantee the sidewalk, but we don't know about his question about turn lane.
Yes, sir. Again, we did note to the applicant that redevelopment might be coming, and so you might see he's doing this somewhat at his own risk. Knows that there might be additional right-of-way required that would have to come off, as Mr. Pinovich indicated, on the north side of Main Avenue. Ms. Novotny, are you on the line here?
Yes, I am.
Okay. This is the applicant's representative, sir. Did you
hear that discussion?
Yes, I did. And my understanding is that if we want to make any improvement to the property at this point, we need to be platted, and that is the reason that we're here tonight.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Very good. What are you going to do to the property?
We hope to tear down the dilapidated buildings and redevelop it into something that's more functional, safe, and attractive.
Very good. Any questions of the commissioners?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Garrick?
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye.
Thank you, sir.
Item E, Arcadia Parkview Addition, 18 and 28th Avenue North, recommended by Planning Commission on 12/120. Zoning change from single dwelling residential to single dwelling residential 4 SR4. First reading of rezoning ordinance and the plat of Arcadia Parkview Addition. Donald Crest to explain.
Thank you, Commissioners. This is located here, 8th Avenue North and Oak Street. Here are the ball fields here. Those of you north siders have been by this many times. These are two properties. This building shown here is no longer there. It was ordered demolished. The property owner, who also owns this property here, we did a zone change here earlier this year for these, bought these two properties. There's an existing residence here he's using, and he wants to be able to build a small duplex on here, which is, we've worked out with our inspections department. We've been working with them on that. But to make this work, what he's going to do is he's going to plat these two properties into one and slightly increase the zoning there from SR3 to SR4 to allow them to have, they'll have just enough area to have 3 units on that lot. Won't be able to build any large apartment buildings at all, just the 3 units, the duplex and the one existing building. That's what the current zoning looks like now there. So just a little increase in the density there. There's the plat showing the 2 lots platted together. This is in the Horseman neighborhood. We did advise the neighborhood of that and didn't hear anything back. We've had a few questions from the neighbors that we've responded to, but no objection so far. Again, just a plat and a simple zone change here. There's just a couple of quick shots of the property from the other day. And again, the Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. The applicant's, the property owner, Dmitry Kovalyev, and the applicant's representative, Larry Carcona, I believe, are on the call here this evening and may wish to address the commission. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, Commissioners.
Is anyone present who wishes to speak to the zoning change?
Hi, I'm Larry Carcona. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I am here, I'm attending, and more than happy to answer any questions associated with this.
I'm here too. My name is Dimitri. Hello, everyone.
Any questions, then, commissioners? You're not a commissioner? Any other discussion? Closed public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. Can I add a
Mr.
quick comment? So I want to thank the inspections department, because if you would have seen a picture of that lot before that was condemned, that whole thing was packed to the gills. And maybe Bruce I don't want to have him come up because he's been spending a lot of time up here, but if we could have a picture of what it looked like before, it was awful. So I'm guessing a lot of the neighbors are very thankful to have a some new building going on there, because it was a hoarder house, just like you watch on TV. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thanks, Donald. Item F, Renaissance Zone Project for Craig and Clive, OG LLC for the new construction project on 6th and 10th, 6th Avenue North, 505 and 506 Oak Street North. Nicole Crutchfield to explain.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. This evening, we have an application in front of us from Craig Enclave, and they are present today. If you have any questions, they're here to construct a new residential structure at 6 and 10 6th Avenue North, 505 and 509 Oak Street North. Pursuant to this application, they're hoping to construct a building with 1 floor of below-grade parking, first floor parking and walkout apartment units with additional multifamily units on floors 2 through 4 for a total of 117 units, along with 14 for sale condominiums. You did see this application for a TIF not too long ago, and this would be a Renaissance Zone application primarily for the income relief. And the Renaissance Zone Authority did review this on December 22nd and unanimously approved this project. I would say this is our satellite block under the Renaissance Zone, and so this project will this will occupy our satellite block as part of the Renaissance Zone boundary and for the immediate future.
And is that for 2 years or 5 years?
5 years.
That it takes that zone up?
5 years.
Okay. Any questions? Anybody want to speak to this Renaissance Zone application?
Happy to answer any questions.
I move approval.
Oh,
Go ahead
you
if
have
you're gonna
members
come
from the
up.
public.
Somebody wanted to speak, John.
Oh, oh,
There
well,
works.
yeah, okay. Thank you, Commissioner Garrett. Hello, everyone. My name is Shanna. I use she, her pronouns. I live at 514 Oak Street, and so this is right outside my front door, right? I've emailed the commissioners, so I'm not going to belabor the point. However, I would like to ask, how much money would they be getting in total with the TIF and if you vote to approve for this? And either way, I would like to say, please do not vote for this because it is still not what the community wants. I will say thank you to Jesse Craig for having meetings with the community at times. But like I said in my emails before, there are affordability concerns as well as other concerns that the neighbors have been having. I would also like to point out that in my previous email, I mentioned the issue regarding COVID concerns with rent. And what was it, this summer or last spring, Jesse wrote, I thought was a very insensitive letter to the editor about after his company or his family's company was criticized for not helping tenants during the pandemic, that he wrote a letter to the editor. I think it was entitled, "The Solution is Living Within Your Means." So I just wanted to highlight that as a concern, that seeing a letter like that does not instill a sense of confidence in regards to this project. Thank you.
Nicole, can you answer the question about it on the Renaissance Zone, who gets the tax relief and what is it?
Well, maybe Austin would like to speak to his business plan.
So the TIF that we received for this project primarily goes from, well, all of that goes for attributed improvements required to make the site buildable. The Renaissance Zone, in the end, from an income standpoint, does not benefit the project other than the future owners of the condos. So from an income tax standpoint, if any of those folks qualify for that state income tax benefit, that would be the top floor.
The top floor condos basically get a no sales or no income tax for 5 years
Yes.
if they qualify, and no property tax for 5 years if they qualify. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Any other discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Garrick?
No.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 22. Commissioner Garrick, you didn't second it, wasn't it Strand that seconded it? Yeah, Strand did the second on that, just so you understand. I want Tony's votes clear. Voting for something. Resolution of annexation for a property south of current Fargo city limits, west of I-29 along and east along 45th Street and along south of 64th Avenue South to support future sports complex, educational, commercial, and residential development, street and drainage right-of-way, and set the date for a hearing of such protest on 2/22/21 City Commission meeting. Mark Williams to explain.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. That's pretty much exactly what we're looking at here. We have about a 251-acre annexation that's going to accommodate the future Sanford Sports Center and also the future Career Academy. In addition, there's right-of-way that's needed to be able to construct some of the roads in there. By approving this resolution, you'll be giving staff the permission to be able to contact the property owners formally and publish this with an official annexation map brought back to you February 22nd. Staff is recommending approval, and I'm here for any questions.
Mark, why do you have two of the blanks in the middle of it?
Currently, we're still working with our property owners to figure out what they would like to do. The swath that divides those two blanks is an area that the drain would go through that is part of that 2,300-acre Southwest Pond project.
Very good. And do we have public hearing on this as well, or is just to declare an annexation?
Just approve the resolution, and we will bring this back after we do our formal publications as required.
Commissioner Garrett.
Will these remain blank spots like enclaves inside of Fargo, or is it at some point going to become part of Fargo?
I don't anticipate they are going to be out of the city limits of Fargo forever based on the need for developing in that property in the future.
Do you have a motion?
That's a move. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Commissioner Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. I just will note that now with the diversion coming, finally and formally, I can approve and support annexations in those protected areas.
Roll call vote.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 23, I apologize before this. We'll go through them. Mike will present them. And Mike, you want to go through each individual, although there's a block that's one owner, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So the first four will go relatively quickly, and then the last two will probably take a little more time.
Okay.
So the first one is a mobile home park located at 4301 El Toro Boulevard South. It's a 75-acre plot with roughly 402 mobile home sites. A reappraisal of mobile home parks was conducted in 2018 due to the sales that were occurring. This resulted in the values of the mobile home parks throughout the city of Fargo going up. The appellant is asking that the value be reduced to $9,120,000 for the 2018 assessment, about a 20% reduction. The property sold in 2011 for $15,119,000, or around $37,600 per site. 7 years later, the 2018 assessed value was $11,398,000, or about $28,300 per site. It's about a $3.7 million difference between what the assessed value was to what it sold for 7 years prior. Comparable sales that occurred had a median sale price of $31,300 per site. Neither letters of authorization nor supporting evidence for a reduction were received by the agenda deadline. We recommend retaining the 2018 value as certified. And I believe there is,
Representative from the owner or owner?
Excuse me.
I'll be very brief. My name is Mike Rahm. I'm an attorney at the Frederickson and Byron Law Firm here in Fargo. We submitted the applications on these trailer parks, the client's request, because of an increase in the assessment from the year before. We did not submit additional information. I don't have any additional information to submit this evening. I do have on the other ones, which we can talk about, but on this, I have nothing additional to add. Simply ask that you would grant the abatement. Thank you.
So would the commission like to act on this? You got the information, and Mike, is your recommendation? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion, the suggested motion, denial of the application of abatement or refund of taxes number 4490 on 4301 El Toro Boulevard South and retain the 2018 value.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Truman.
Commissioner Preston?
So I am not going to argue at all with the valuation, but what I don't understand is this huge jump from 17 to 18. What happened there?
Sure.
And that's true on all of these properties.
It's true on all those properties. What it is when you have that group of years where no sales occur, we generally don't increase a number of properties just because we don't have the support to do that type of increase. Then suddenly we get a whole slew of them, and we're like, okay, we need to increase these because the market is definitely showing that there's more value than we have in the assessment. And this is sadly a relatively normal thing with commercial properties, especially just because you have that block of time where a lot of sales don't occur, and then you get a whole bunch at the same time.
If I could do a follow-up question.
Go ahead.
So in 19 and 20, there were sales where you were able to adjust it again?
Yes, we did have a few more sales after that. And so looking at the past sales and then looking also at some sales that we got from around the state for just some additional support, we did look at doing an increase after that. So that's not on this agenda, but this is just for the 2018 valuation. But
It just seems so crazy to me that we should expect a commercial property or residential property to absorb doubling or even in some case almost tripling of valuation. Is it a legal, are you legally required to only base it on current sales?
I am legally required to keep it at true and full market value, and there is no allowance in law for increasing incrementally over a certain amount of time. If I have proof and can show that the market value is at a certain level, I have to do my best to get it up to that level.
So is there any ability to implement that over time in an incremental way?
Let's say in the absence of sales, like I was talking about, yes, there are things that we can do. There's, certain amount of danger or, pitfalls to that is because if we start doing increases that are too large, then people will start calling us and saying, hey, how are you supporting these increases that you're doing? But we can do small incremental increases year to year in the absence of sales.
One more question. My question was in relationship to once you have the sales data, can you implement the increase over time?
No, we can't. Once we have proof of that there's a market value there that we are not reaching, we have to increase it to that.
It just
So
seems
Mike, if you're not within 90% of value, what happens? What does the state do?
What they will do is they will do usually a citywide increase on the classification of properties. So if we're showing that we're low, we're not in compliance with residential properties, they will do the increase to get us up to where compliance is. And it doesn't matter if say on an individual basis a property is high or low, they're going to get that increase so that
The danger is all of us taking increased pay because we're not within 90%.
That's right.
We are always close to 94, 95 compliance, right?
That's what we always try for. Yep.
I just heard if you weren't in compliance, everybody jumps 12%, but that's not true. They can jump it to what they think it is.
Right, and the job that we do is we try to identify those portions of the market that are low and increase those portions instead of increasing everybody, so that only the portions that are low are actually feeling that, because to a certain extent, if they are low, they've been getting a benefit up to this point as well. And so we try to keep it so that those identified properties are receiving the increase. Not everybody is receiving the increase. And in general, everybody's being treated as fair as possible.
Does that answer your questions?
It does. It just seems so crazy that there isn't a better way of doing this, so people don't get hit with these huge property tax increases.
I would love suggestions.
We can lower the mills.
I'm sorry?
We can lower the mills.
That's not going to make a difference in doubling or tripling.
Roll call, it's moved and seconded. Roll call vote.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item B.
Okay, just a preliminary note that the following 3 appeals are kind of all one property, and they sold as a unit in 2011 for $3,326,000. Again, 7 years later, the 2018 overall assessment for the 3 properties was $2,846,000, or almost $480,000 less than the sale price 7 years prior. The appellant is asking for a combined value of $2,100,000 for 2018, an overall reduction of 26% over the 3 parcels. The first appeal is on a vacant lot located at 3340 12th Avenue North. The appellant is asking for the value to be reduced to $63,000 for 2018. The 2018 value was certified at $73,000 or $1.40 per square foot. Comparable land sales range from $2.90 per square foot to $5.78 per square foot, and that's on commercial land. Neither letters of authorization nor supporting evidence for a reduction were received by the agenda deadline. Recommend denial of the appeal and to retain 2018 value as certified.
Do you want to finish the other 2 or you?
Oh, you want me to go through the other 2 as well?
Yeah.
Okay. The second parcel is appealed, is a mobile home park located at 3220 12th Avenue North. It's a 15.5 acre plot with 117 mobile home sites. The value was increased due to the reappraisal. The appellant is asking that the value be reduced to $1,722,000 for the 2018 assessment, or a 27% reduction. 2018 value was $2,349,000 or $20,000 per site. Comparable sales that occurred had a median sale price again of $31,300 per site. Again, no authorization letter or supporting evidence. We recommend a denial on this appeal as well. And the third parcel appeal is a C-store that's right alongside the other 2 parcels at 3216 12th Avenue North. As of the 2018 assessment, the underground tanks, pumps, and canopy were still in place. The appellant is asking that the value be reduced to $315,000 for a reduction of 26%. The 2018 value was $424,300. Comparable property improvement values were appraised in the range of $91 per square foot to $130 per square foot, showing an equitable assessment with the subject improvement value being $103 per square foot. Comparable sales occurred between $83 per square foot and $114 per square foot on the improvement value, with a median of $106 per square foot. In view of these, the subject value of $104 per square foot is well supported. We recommend denial of the appeal and retain the 2018 value for this one as well.
Now you can speak to those 3 properties, please.
As with the last property, sir, I have nothing to add on these. We again requested because of the large jump, but have no additional information beyond that. Thank you.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Move to deny B, C, and D.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Garrick?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 23E.
This is a hotel located at 3333 13th Avenue South. An authorization letter to appeal this property was received. This is a mid-scale full-service hotel. The appellant is asking that the value be reduced to $5 million for 2018, a reduction of 37%. The 2018 value was $7,990,500 or $66 per square foot. Comparable values show a median of $91 per square foot, showing that the subject is well below the middle valuation, with only one exception is among the lowest valued of the comparable properties. The median of competing sales sold in the $82 per square foot range. The sales analysis exhibit number 7 shows the value to be lower than the sales of similar properties. Thus, the assessment recognizes the physical condition and the market condition of the hotel. Supporting evidence for reduction was not received until after the agenda deadline, and we weren't able to analyze it for this write-up, but we'll have some brief comments on it once it is presented. And we are recommending denial of the appeal and to retain the 2018 value as certified.
And your comments to this?
Yes, I have rather more to say on this. I'll go as quickly as I can, but I have to cover a fair amount of material, so bear with me, please. First, I want to apologize for the delay in getting this information to staff. Our client contact had an unexpected family emergency, and that slowed us down. I got it to staff, I think within hours of going into the agenda, and I offered to staff this evening that if he wanted to table this so we could talk, it would be fine with us. He indicated he wanted to go forward, but again, if the commission feels like it didn't get enough time, we would not be upset about the matter being tabled, but until someone tells me to stop, I'll push forward. We did get a packet of information to Mr. Johnson's office, and I understand it was given to you. In that packet, there's a memo describing our position. There's also what's called a STAR report, which is an industry standard for hotels. And there is a set of financials, and then there is an income approach sheet, which shows our value, and I'm going to go through that briefly. As a matter of sort of brief level setting, the statute that we're dealing with provides that if we apply to reduce a value, I can't come in here tonight and ask you to make it less than that. But I can always come in and say, I think we overshot the mark and we actually are not going to ask for as much as I initially did. And that's the case tonight. The assessed value here is 7.9 million. I'm rounding. We originally applied for 5, but I'm asking tonight that you go to 6.34. So 6.34, which would be a per room value of about not quite $37,000. Now, I agree with staff's comments earlier in the last abatement before I got up here, on the prior trailer parks, that the question is true and full value. And according to the North Dakota Assessor's Guidelines, true and full value is the market value, which is the value at which a property would trade on the open market. This is an income-producing property. Now, for any kind of property, there are 3 recognized approaches to valuation. There's comparable sales, cost to construct, and income. Now, what we have here from staff is something on the first 2, but not the last one. So I want to address those briefly. Cost to construct is particularly useful when you're talking about a relatively new building. This building's almost 40 years old. So to generate a cost to construct, you have to use projected cost manuals, and then you have to build in factors for obsolescence given the age, and it becomes pretty fuzzy pretty quick. So we don't think that that's the best value. Then you have comparable sales. Look, comparable sales are the best metric of market value in theory, because you want to know what something's worth? Sell it, see what people will give you. And that's great when you have a robust market. So when we're talking about houses, sure, that's great. But we're talking about hotels, there just aren't that many that sell, and then they're very different from each other. In addition, a huge part of hotel sales is the flag. It's not the building you're buying, it's the brand. Are you buying a nationally recognized brand, or are you buying some budget brand that nobody's heard of? Might be the same building, but those will trade at different values. And the flag is personal property. It's not real property. So it doesn't get taxed. Here we have only 2 comparable sales, fairly recent. One is the Holiday Inn, which is a higher class of hotel, and one is the Baymont, which is comparable, but again, I think a lower quality flag. And we're right in the middle of those. So again, those form a good bracket, and we're in the middle at our lower value. But what the staff doesn't do here is account for income at all. And when you're buying a hotel, what do you care about? You care about the ability to rent rooms and make money. And that is really going to determine how much you're willing to pay for it. So if you look at the sheet that we gave you that says income approach, what we've done is create a model to price this hotel. I'll just walk through it very quickly. You can see what we've done is taken actual revenue from the hotel for the year at issue, and I've given you the accounting records from the hotel to back that up. Not going to go through them, but they're the actual expenses. Excuse me, actual income. Then we've loaded up the actual expenses from the hotel. Please note that we did not include property tax in those expenses. If we did, that would be unfair to the city because we think it's too high, so we shouldn't deduct an abnormally high tax. So we take tax out, and we're going to add it back later. I'll get to that in a second. We then take out the cost of personal property because that doesn't get taxed. And if you look at the second page, you end up with essentially the income to the business of $196,000 a year, which adds then to the prior revenue. So we get to the sheet on the second page, it says NOI, net operating income to the real property of $603,000 using actual numbers. Now, when someone buys and trades an income-producing property, they always apply what's called a capitalization rate. That means essentially what multiple of revenue are you willing to pay to buy this hotel? You're not just going to buy 1 year's worth. Nobody would sell it for 1 year's worth. They'd keep it, right? So here we've used an industry capitalization rate of 8.5. We think that's a reasonable cap rate based on the market, consulting, national and regional publications. We then add, it says ETR 1%. That's the effective tax rate. So we're building our tax rate back in since we took the actual tax money out earlier to get what's called a loaded cap rate. Then when you do the division, you get down to that $6.348 million price at a per door at $36,907. And I think it's useful that that ends up within a bracket, which is suggested by the two sales we have. The sales are of limited use because there's only 2 of them, but we do end up within that bracket. I know that I've just thrown a lot of stuff at you, and I apologize for that, but under the system in North Dakota, the county commission makes the decision, you make a recommendation, and this is the trial. Your obligation is to choose a value within the range of evidence, not just to decide whether it's good or bad, but to choose the value. And we submit to you that our value is better evidence because it reflects the actual income and expense of the property. And anyone buying this property would be buying it not to live in it, not to own a pretty building, but to make money. That's why you buy apartment buildings. That's why you buy hotels. And staff's assessment doesn't account for that. Now, one last comment, big picture. Look, staff have to assess thousands of properties in the city, and they can't do income analysis on every one of them. That's fine. That's not a problem. But then if an individual owner thinks that that's not right, they can come forward and do this. So I want to emphasize that it's not my criticism that staff needs to do income on every property. They don't. I think a mass appraisal system is perfectly fine. But when an owner stands up like this and says, wait a minute, I think you're missing something, you need to take another look at it, that's what the North Dakota legislature and Supreme Court has said we have a right to do. Thank you for looking at our evidence, and I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you. Mike, do you have any, if there's a time delay, isn't there a time it goes before the county? So is there ability to time delay, or if you had time to look at this?
I have not had time to look at it closely enough. We haven't had time to look at the income approach and verify all the information that we've been given in order to verify the numbers that were used to do the income approach. We have trained staff to handle that.
So if you delayed 2 weeks, would that cause any issues?
I guess strictly speaking, no, it wouldn't cause any issues.
I'm just talking about when it goes to appeal to the county. So it doesn't go to the county for 2 weeks, 4 weeks? When does it go?
It doesn't go to the county, Mr. Mayor, until you act.
Oh.
Right.
So you could, I shouldn't jump in, but I believe you could table this. Give us 2 weeks to work with staff. We'll work in good faith. We're an open book. We have nothing to hide. We'll show everything we have. Maybe we can work this out. If not, we can come back in 2 weeks and try again.
Yeah, what's the will of the commission? You want to delay 2 weeks?
Table
Have
for
a
2
motion?
weeks? Is that the motion? Table for 2 weeks?
Yes.
I'll
Is there a
second it, if that's what.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Garrick?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item F.
All right, the last 2 are the Plains Art Museum. 2 parcels are in this appeal for a change of classification for property tax purposes. Classification under statute 570208 subsection 11 is for fire protection only, and the museum has been under this classification for 27 years. They pay roughly 8% of the property taxes that would normally be due, with the other 92% being exempted. State law says that all property is taxable unless expressly exempted. Museums are not expressly exempted by the law, so it becomes a judgment call as to whether the property is exempt, and if so, what statute it would be exempt under. Although the property does not fit well under either the current classification or the charitable classification, it fits better under the current classification because it looks more like a club organization than a public charity for the reasons outlined in the packet of providing food, shelter, and clothing. 39 similar properties in the city are under this classification. As the assessor, I have to abide by the state laws which have been written, not other state laws. I recommend denial of the appeal and retain the 2018 classification, and this appeal has two separate motions for the two separate parcels.
Do we have somebody from the museum to speak tonight?
You're stuck with me.
You're
again,
up
sir.
here all night. Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is it though. After this, I promise I'll leave. So the last one was all about numbers and spreadsheets, and this one is a much more philosophical question. State law says that property is exempt from taxation if it is a building belonging to institutions of public charity. And then the statute goes on at some length, but it doesn't define what public charity is. That's not defined by the Century Code. Every case that's gone to the North Dakota Supreme Court about this issue has dealt with apartment buildings, has dealt with essentially residences, operated in most cases by a charity, and then the question becomes, are you charging anything? Are you a charity? Are you not? So we don't have any law on museums. Now, the reference to other states' law, I've been candid. We don't have guidance in North Dakota. But we do look at Minnesota's next door. It has an almost identical statute. And it has a statute that has 6 factors in it. And we put those in our memo, and we sort of briefed them, because you got to find a way to think about whether something's charitable somehow. And so with the Minnesota case law, I'm not here saying it's binding. I know that. But you have to think about whether something's a charity, and that was, we thought, a useful way to think about it. So in connection with our memo, we gave you the Plains Art Museum's 501c3 certification, its articles and bylaws, which make clear that no one owns it and no one will benefit from any profit it makes because it's a public institution, tax exempt federally. And we also gave you a piece of a piece about the programming at the Plains Art Museum. I'm not going to read my memo to you. You're capable of reading it. But essentially, if you go through the factors in Minnesota, or I think almost any other ones you can think of, with one exception, which I'll get to in a second, the Plains Art Museum is a public charity. It doesn't charge. Nobody profits by it. Any money it generates from revenue is put back into its nonprofit functions. So again, no matter when you break it down that way, it is, in our view, an institution of public charity. Staff's comment in its memorandum essentially says an art museum does not appear similar to organizations which provide basic necessities like food, clothing, shelter, or hospitalization. Well, so I guess staff is proposing that to be an institution of public charity, you have to provide something without which someone would die. I think that is overly constrictive. That's not supported in case law. There's no basis in the law to say that that's right. I can't sit here and say, look at case X or Y that says it's wrong. But an institution of public charity, the plain meaning of charity is broader than that. And the plain meaning of public charity is broader than that. And it should include nonprofit art museums operated on a free basis for the benefit of the public. So we would urge that you agree to reclassify this property. Thank you.
And Mike, you had some legal consult on this one as well, and
Yes.
your advisors told you what?
My advice was to hold the classification that we have because of the points that I laid out in the memo. Basically, that the look of the museum was not would you say along the same lines as this case law that it is suggesting. There's a 2-prong system. And a lot of times it has to do with what are they providing. And I'm getting a little bit tripped up here over the legal words and all that kind of stuff. And Erica can maybe give a little bit more. But the advice simply was to hold our classification as it is because we are treating other similar properties in the city the same way as well.
Eric, what was the legal advice on this? Because some people will look at it and say, it looks like a charity. They're giving away free admission. You go to do arts. They're doing education. They're doing a variety of other things. Why do you want to charge them for the firemen's present to protect their building?
Sure. So the issue in the statute is what's a charitable purpose under North Dakota law. And, Mike Rahm suggested this, and we don't disagree that the cases, I don't know if it's exclusively, but by and large, the cases are issues where something like a nursing home is asking for the charitable purpose standard. And that's where we arrived at this notion that charitable purpose has to be not just giving away some services for free. You could call that charity, but that's not the charitable purpose that has been expressed by the courts in those cases. In those cases, they said, listen, just providing some lower cost of living for elderly isn't necessarily a charitable purpose. There has to be some kind of nursing assistance, a demonstrable need, a demonstrable need by the people that are receiving the thing. And that's where you get into, as Mike said, where you're sort of saving somebody's life or you're helping them with their health. That's the demonstrated need that is a charitable purpose in North Dakota. Yes, some states, Minnesota is one of them in case law, and maybe perhaps even in some states by statute, they've identified factors to be considered. And in here, Mr. Rahm's memo, it identifies Minnesota factors, at least from at least one Minnesota case. Actually, North Dakota Supreme Court's been offered those standards in a case, and they chose not to adopt them as North Dakota standards. And so we are left with the case law that we have that sort of gets at that demonstrated need analysis. And again, that seems to be more for furthering people's health and safety and life as being what is a charitable purpose under North Dakota law. That's maybe the best I can do.
But I thought Commissioner Strand said art was good for your health. I think, John, you said that once, didn't you?
I did.
Discussion by the commissioners. Mr. Preston.
So Eric, as I understand, the definition that you're talking about has been established only by the cases that have been presented to the courts, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you've also mentioned, Mike, that this is the only case where it's been classified in this particular category, but as I understand, there's another one. My concern here, and I voiced this earlier, is consistency. Have you discovered anything different
Yes.
in regards to the second one?
Yes, we have. I don't know how far we want to go into it because this appeal is about a specific property, and the classification of that one has not been called in question.
And my concern here is consistency.
Right. And in looking into it further, we did discover that it actually is correctly classified as exempt under a different law because of the ownership under the city's ownership there. So that one is not an issue.
I think the concern is the Art Museum, a lot of different museums in the community are taxed the same way. To your point, are we consistent with how we tax everybody else? I think, Mike, you have a list of 28 or 25 institutions in town where we charge only for what the services of fire protection are, and that's at 8%.
Right.
And that's the way we historically have done that. So this is a question, hey, are we charitable? We do some things that could be issued as that. And to your point is that we have traditionally done it one way, and the museum brought a good point to us. Is this something you would consider for this institution?
And if I could be heard, may I be heard, Mr. Mayor? Briefly, on this question of consistency, obviously I would never advocate that taxation be inconsistent. But at the same time, within property tax, there's a principle called equalization, which is a kind of a separate process where you make sure you look at other properties. But on these abatement proceedings, you're supposed to look at the property at issue. And if there are 20 other properties out there who should have done this, that's on them. They can do it next year. But we're entitled to be heard on our property, irrespective of what other properties do or don't do.
Can I address that?
Attorneys always have counter arguments. Go ahead, Mike.
The only reason that I mentioned that is because, again, the whole question of equalization is that we look at other properties. Are they being treated the same way as far as valuation, as far as classification? Those two things are what the assessor's office deals with. So the reason I mentioned that is to show that other properties are actually being classified similarly to this property and is not being treated arbitrarily.
But I don't know, and you don't know, or at least the commission doesn't have an evidence, the ins and outs of every one of those organizations, their name, their tax status, what they charge, how they distribute their money. None of that is here. We're
Mr.
just
Chairman,
guessing.
this isn't an open forum where the attorney gets to interrupt all the time. So let's just clarify that.
Yes, sir.
You get called on by the mayor.
I apologize.
Thank you.
So to just clarify that, we'll call off public debate, and if we ask you a question, we'll invite you to come back up to the stage. Commissioner Strand.
I have a basic question. If I were to look over to Minnesota, I would ask about the Rourke and the Comp Center, but I'm going to stay in North Dakota. Can you tell me, even though it's West Fargo and in the county, how Bonanzaville is classified?
I can't tell you specifically. I think that Bonanzaville may be under the county name, or maybe it's privately owned. I'm not 100% sure about Bonanzaville, but I did check with a number of other jurisdictions throughout the state, and the reality is that one jurisdiction does it the way we're doing it, another one does it the other way. They're giving them charitable, and so there's no. Again, this is a very unclear question throughout the state. It just depends on the assessor or who determined at whatever point they put them on the classification, what they decided they were going to be under. So there's no real strict rule on this. Again, we have other people, Minot is doing their museums the same as we are. Medora is they're giving them charitable. So at this point, we're being consistent within the city of Fargo.
Mr. Gary.
I'm going to make a motion and then I have a comment. I'm going to move denial for both of the properties.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
My point I want to make is I think he makes a good point, right? We treat art in the city of Fargo like a charity. We have been for years. We have the Arts and Social Services Fund that we fund through tax dollars, and we give away to the arts, presumably. So on the one hand, it makes a good point. On the other hand, we do have those other properties who aren't getting special benefits from our tax dollars, and they are paying this 8% or whatever that number may be for their fire protection. So it's where do you want to be consistent? I would err on the side of the other properties looking at this and saying, well, they get something special. They get a fund for themselves and they don't have to pay taxes. I think if I was those other properties, I would say, well, my charity isn't important to you, but I guess arts is very important to you. So I would hope that everyone would agree to deny this in light of the other properties. And I would also hope that we are more careful with our charitable giving through tax dollars. It's not charitable to take someone's money out of their pocket and give it to somebody else as a government.
Commissioner Preston.
I would say those are two very different issues. And I would also say that I think and granted, it's based on the cases that have gone to the courts, so there's not much we can do there, but the definition of charitable needs to be expanded, it seems to me. But in the case that it hasn't been, there's not much we can do, I guess.
Mr. Strand.
I have a question for my peers at the commission. Just to confirm whether or not, in your opinion or in our legal counsel opinion, I have a conflict of interest here. This is a Plains Art Museum is a customer of mine that I work with a lot. Even though I don't have a financial attachment to this, if you ask me to not vote, I will adhere to your desire.
Commissioners, you want to allow them to vote or not?
Allow them to vote.
Yeah.
Allow them to vote?
Yes.
I'll let you vote, John. Tough bounce. You got to make a decision. Go ahead, your comment.
I think these are some really good questions, and you're raising some good points too, Mr. Rum, that the others have not raised their abatement request. The Plains has. A question I asked this week was just for the sense of a comparison. You might remember when Bridges was being built over across from the Bison Sports Arena. There were 22 houses that were on that block. 21 of them were owned by the NDSU Development Foundation. They don't pay a penny of property taxes. And I know there's reasons for that, but I just don't understand how it is some people pay property taxes under their charitable umbrella and some don't, especially if you're an alumni association, a development association for a university. I know down by South University, the hospital backside of Dakota Hospital, 10th Street, and their foundation owns that. They pay property taxes on them. So this is what perplexes me. is this inconsistency of who's a charity, what defines a charity. You know, I think in your definition, the 39 categories here include like the Sons of Norway. It wouldn't have ever occurred to me that the Sons of Norway isn't a charity. You know, and so I don't know how we clarify this, but I'm inclined to try seek equity, and maybe there's a way we can look for that. I don't know. To going forward, I'm hesitant to vote on this one way or the other. I can go either way.
Commissioner Pipcorn.
Oh, Mr. Chair, real quick, John, I think we should resolve this thing with people not paying property taxes that own properties. I totally agree with you. So if you come up with a solution to that, I'll be behind it 100%. The thing about charities, that's why attorneys are employed as attorneys, because to me, it's food, clothing, and shelter. That's charities. What people's essential things, so helping people that don't have that, that's it. That's charities. The art museum, it's a great place, but that is not an essential food, clothing, and shelter. That's just my opinion. That to me, that's why I'm not an attorney, because to me, those are pretty simple categories, and that's why they get paid lots of money to wander off into the wilderness. Thank you.
Commissioner Garrick.
And like him, I totally agree with you, John. It's a larger issue. That's why I want to deny this, and then let's have that discussion. So if you piecemeal it together, you're going to get a lot of other organizations looking at us saying you're not treating me equal, and that's the last thing we want to do. So I say we deny this, and absolutely, I'm with all three of you to say let's have another conversation about this.
Commissioner Preston.
I don't know if this is the appropriate question to be asking right now, but how are hospitals classified?
Hospitals are, they are under the charitable exemption specifically.
Except for their clinics, they have to pay taxes on clinic. We're in commission discussion now, so we don't allow any more public discussion. Is there any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Garrick?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
No.
Strand?
No.
Mahoney?
No. Do I have another motion? You denied the abatement.
What would be the appropriate motion?
To allow them to be charitable, right? Mike, wouldn't that be it? Because we'd support you if we passed what we just passed. We didn't pass it, so Commissioner Strand.
For the sake of exploring this and landing on ground solidly, would this be a topic for our tax exempt review committee to vet? In my head, that's where this should go, and have you folks in your committee. It is a discussion about who's exempt under taxes.
Mr. Chair, I think this is more than the tax exempt review committee. I would rather have us all, because I think that this is it's a philosophical thing that impacts lots of things. So I guess I would not be comfortable. I'd rather have it be with all of us present and have whether it's a brown bag or something like that where we're all involved, because I think otherwise it's just two, and I would rather have us all involved. Thank you.
Mike could do a brown bag on it. We could go through the legal arguments and do something like that in the future. Would that be fair?
Sure.
So I have a recommendation from the assessor's office, and I need a motion one way or up or down on this. Mr. Strand or Preston, can you come up with a motion?
So the motion would be to, yeah, I'm struggling.
Mr.
Eric,
Chair,
can you? Yeah.
I mean, this is a recommendation to the county who actually makes the decision. And secondly, I mean, I think you certainly could interpret the negative result of the motion to simply be a recommendation.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Recommendation is a charitable organization.
Well, the motion, the application is to abate the taxes, as their application says, and that the recommendation was to deny that application. And you could deem that to be a recommendation. You know, your recommendation then is to grant the abatement.
Okay.
Are we okay with that?
And it's just for 1
We've
year.
had fun with motions tonight, so I just want to make clear. So in a sense, we're not recommending to the county that they charge them taxes. We're recommending they take them as a charitable organization, and even that 8% goes away.
Right, to change their classification to charitable.
Okay.
For 2018.
For 2018, for 2 years ago.
Very good. Anything else, Mike? I think we're done. If Eric says we're done, that's the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
24, downtown water project improvements. Does the team want to take a break, or are we okay to go ahead? Commissioners, okay? If I don't see you doing thumbs down, we're going to go ahead. Bruce Grubb has been worrying about this presentation. He's wanted to give it and been working hard with the team. I think you've got a good presentation, Bruce. Let's see what you got.
We do, and we do have about a 40-slide presentation here, but I just wanted to mention that Commissioner Preston wasn't here at the time, but there was a presentation similarly given back on March 13th of 2017, and the idea was discussed. It really centers around the 3 downtown water towers currently. One was built in 1940, 2 in 1955, and they're in need of major rehabilitation. But we went through an evaluation and determined that replacement of those 3 towers with a single new tower was, in a life cycle basis, more economical and hydraulically much better to move water around the downtown areas. So we do have about 25 slides related to the planning and the background and design of the current water tower that we have, a composite style water tower, pretty common in the industry. And then we've got about 15 slides put together on the actual alternate bid, which is we have to coat the upper steel tank of the water tower regardless. And this project went out for bids once already with an alternate bid for public art as part of the coating system. Those bids came back and came in about 30% over the estimate, so we're not comfortable with that. We think we can value engineer ourselves into a better pricing structure. So what we're asking for tonight essentially is to reject the bids that we've received, contracts 1 through 4, and allow a value engineering effort and a rebidding of the tower. And we'd also like approval to rebid the bid alternate as well. Now, the 15 slides relative to the bid alternate just explain the background that we went through, public involvement for selection of the artwork.
Can't we go through the slides?
Pardon?
Can't we go through the slides?
We can absolutely.
I mean, you guys done a lot of work on this, and I think there's some interesting engineer things Troy brings up, and there's
We're
some
happy to do it.
Yeah, let's try it.
Okay, Troy Hall, our water utility director, will go first, and I find this stuff very interesting, and I hope you do as well. And then we'll transition into Megan and Nicole, who will talk about the process for the alternative bid. So, Troy?
All right. Good evening, Commission. Yeah, we'll go through the slides here, and really great project, so glad to talk about this. So I do have some notes. I don't want to keep you here till midnight. I love talking about
No, but the
water system.
public is here too, Troy, so you got to remember that. They need to know the work you guys have done on this. This is a fantastic solution.
Okay, well, this project, as we'll go through, it's a different idea. It's a one new tower to replace 3 old towers because they're so close together, and very important project because this is the Bruce was involved in it. I wasn't at the time, but there was a 2005 water distribution master plan, and what we've been attempting to do is to get our whole water system to function like that master plan. So this is really the final piece of that puzzle to make it work right. The other part of it is it really supports the downtown in focus master plan that was done by planning a few years ago. So they found that they needed storage and improved water main to move the water through the system. So the first part that we've seen, these first slides, we'll walk through them kind of quickly, but we'll go through them to show the public what we've done. I do want to just because I'll kind of forget about it, a really important thing to all of our project is how do we fund it? One of the things that's really great about this project is we did get a $2.81 million State Water Commission grant to help with this project. That was the mayor, Bruce Grubb, and our our water utility engineer, Dan Portlock, went out and testified in Bismarck, and we got that grant. So that's a great thing for the project to fund it. And then I'll go to the next slide here, but there are really 3 study efforts that went into this. So in the 2005 distribution master plan, part of it set up the capital to recondition all the water towers in our system. We went through a study with to evaluate this, just to make sure we're spending the money responsibly. And what we found is we didn't have to recondition everything all at once. We could do portions of it. The second part of it was a downtown water and sewer master plan. That was really done to support the downtown in focus master plan. So really looking at the water, wastewater, but what it arrived at is we needed more storage and improved water main in the system. And then with this study, I'll just step back, but the high cost of maintaining these 3 towers said that we started looking at it, and that was the plan to recondition it, but they were so costly that we said, hey, we better take a second look at this. Maybe we should look at constructing new. So with this reconditioning study we did, the estimate in 2016 dollars was $3.3 million to recondition these 3 water towers. If you inflation adjust, we're getting into the $3.25–4 million range in today's dollars. So very high cost. So that triggered the evaluation. This right here, I don't know if the pointer works, but this is the some of the pictures from that 2016 study. And one thing to note is, inside the towers, there's lots of like jagged edges and lots of handwork that we knew if you need to recoat it, it's gonna you're gonna have a lot of handwork for blasting and recoating. That's what really drives up the expense, but really not very good condition, so we needed some work to do there. So getting into the downtown water and sewer master plan, what that really said is we should increase the storage in the downtown area and improve the water mains, like I said. And this, what we did is we have a computer model that was developed that looks at how our water system functions, and a computer model, and it looks, so if we want to test something, like we could put in the new tower, take out the old, very simple. The nice part about the water and sewer master plan is that it was already set up when we looked at the tower, so we could do that fairly easily. But what the water and sewer master plan said is that the system wasn't working, it was working okay, but you make these improvements, it'll work great. So that's what this slide is about. So we've done the 2 studies. We looked at the reconditioning, we looked at the downtown water and sewer master plan. So we started to look at maybe replacement was an option. So we looked at 50-year life cycle costs for the if we were to continue to recondition or whatever and replace the tower. So we have 2 really options. The left side is reconditioning. So one thing to be mindful of is that the downtown towers 1, 2, and 3 by the NDSU area, it's not only the reconditioning, but they also don't work well hydraulically with the system. So there's added improvements and adding valves to really force the water into those towers. So we get added costs for that. So that contributes to the life cycle. So we looked at a 2 new tower to replace the 3, and we looked at a 1 tower to replace the 3. And what we landed on was the 1 tower because the life cycle cost really supported that. And, considering the new tower, we can really fix all the hydraulics, which is really awesome for the water system. So here's the costs we came up with in the water tower study in 2016. So really, it shows the reconditioning over a 50-year life cycle versus building the new. The new tower saves between $3 and $7 million over a 50-year life cycle. And the near-term costs in the study were more in the near term than the short term because we're building a new tower. However, when we got the State Water Commission grant, that really makes it will make a lot more sense in the near term as well. So here's where we landed, the end product of that study. We looked at where we're looking at building is 11th Street and 7th Avenue. That was really the site that had the most room to construct. The other two sites were very tight as far as construction. The other nice part about this project is we're condensing 3 towers into one, and we'll have room for redevelopment, some probably could be some lots for new single-family homes. So there's a redevelopment component of this part too. So getting into the design of the tower, I thought we'd quickly go through. Here's what's kind of out there, what tower contractors build. On this slide, the one on the left, it's small, really small towers. So if you look at a smaller community surrounding, you might see this type of tower. It's a pedosphere elevated tank. The one on the right is a spheroid tower. We have actually 6 of these in Fargo. The thing about this is it's for a little larger towers, but the maintenance costs are probably 15 to 30% higher than say a composite, which we're recommending. Then the other thing I'll just mention on this one, this tower in the picture, that's Tower 7 on 45th Street and 9th Avenue South. We just reconditioned this tower along with our 12th Avenue Tower, industrial tower. The price tag for doing the reconditioning work, engineering, inspection was about $2 million. So when I'm talking about maintenance costs, I'm not talking about small dollars. So when we're talking percentage, it's real. It actually makes a difference. So the picture on the left here is a legged tower or multi-column elevated storage tower. That's what we have in 1, 2, and 3, and the maintenance costs are about 40 to 60% higher than the composite. So that's what drove the cost up. And I did some analysis of what we paid this year. It really kind of makes sense. It jives that these are very costly towers if you look at what we bid it at. The tower on the right is a composite elevated tank, and I'll just say composite from now on, but that's what we're recommending. It's the most economical design from a construction and maintenance cost. We actually have all the towers in the metro area, that's Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo, Cache Rural, have been composite towers over the past 20 years, and there's about 6 of them in Fargo, West Fargo, and Cache Rural. So when we get into the design recommendation, so there's a few things to consider. One is who can construct the tower. There's really 4 national tower contractors that have experience constructing tower to our size. And all 4 were plan holders in our first bid, just so you know that. The other thing is there's no R&D. It's already a standard design. There's no research development. They already know how to do the structure. They already know how to do the concrete and sequencing of the construction. So it's a lower cost thing than doing something different. The other part of it is kind of the local and regulatory considerations. The State Water Commission, in our application, we recommended all of our stuff we submitted to the state for the grant was saying we're going to build a composite tower. So if we switch gears, that's something to consider. Also, a cool part about this project is we're partnering with Red River Dispatch and IS, and it's also a communication, very important tower from a communication standpoint. So we're going to actually share the tower, like the bottom, the base part of it, right down at the bottom there. We're splitting it, so Red River Dispatch gets about half of it, and we get about half of it for water utility for all our mechanical stuff. And then the top of the tower, they're going to have antennas and that type of thing. So we're working with them, and then again, the lowest cost. I already said the public safety part of it, and a tower is really about fire protection. So I put that's where the emergency storage, like for the downtower, it's very important. And then as far as operating the tower, it's going to be constructed as a $2.5 million, but when we talk to treatment plant operators, the state, it's going to be operated as a 2 million gallon tower. The upper $500,000 is really to protect the water main in the system, and during really high demands in summer, the water will push into that. But it's going to be classified as a 2 million gallon tower. And then just water tower, I did put, here's the fire in December at the 1400 block of First Avenue. That used about 1.4 million gallons of water is what I read on that one. This right here, this is the Elam fire that happened earlier this year. And what can happen, like with a tower, it's you have all this water in the air, and then a fire comes or some demand, that water can just get injected in and provide water for that fire. So like the Elam fire down by Courts Plus, the water tower went way down during that fire until the rest of the system can catch up. So that's really the beauty of a tower, and that's why we're trying to protect the downtown area. So, and this is I wish I could put about 30 SCADA slides to talk, control system slides talked about, but I'll just talk about the one here. But this tower, I gotta point out a few things. This is how we operate the system. So in this upper slide, this is a 3-day span on our north side water towers. And the lower one is the 3-day span of our south side towers. And the way the system is set up, being the downtown towers are so too high, the lowest level on the south towers is really the highest level we can get in the north tower, so we can't make the system work together well. And then we do fluctuate the towers during the day, so at night the towers filled up, during the day they draw down. And we do that, we got to keep the water fresh, and then we don't want a big ice cube in the sky either, so we, like in winter, so we do fluctuate, we move the water in and out. And then this is one thing we added. We have mixers in all our towers to help prevent ice damage. And like I said, the reconditioning this year, that was like $2 million. So we're trying to protect that investment. So I think, let's see, with that, I'll move on. So just the project overall benefits, we'll have improved fire protection, emergency storage for downtown NDSU. Again, we're saving $3 to $7 million life cycle costs. Public safety communications, we're protecting the water system against water main breaks, reducing ice damage in several towers, and then we'll be able to achieve that 2005 master plan operational strategy. So, as Bruce talked about, our first bids under North Dakota law, there were 2 ways we could award it. One was 25% over, one was 28% over. As a utility staff, we didn't feel comfortable recommending that, being they're so far over engineers' estimates. So just an example, what we did a few years ago with the membrane plant bid, we rejected bids and rebid the project, and we're able to cut that by about 12% or over $13 million. So I'm not sure if we'll get the same percentage, but we feel we can save some money with this project. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Nicole. Thank you for your time.
Good job, Troy.
Good evening, Commissioners. You get me, Megan Elshog from the Planning Department tonight. I'll be brief, but we wanted to take this opportunity to present to your Commission about a little bit of background, but about the process for the other component that Troy mentioned is the opportunity for art. So I'll start with a little bit about the Public Art Master Plan. The Public Art Master Plan has multiple references to incorporation of art on infrastructure, specifically in Goal 6 that you'll see up on the screen. So this is something that the Arts and Culture Commission has been talking about for a number of years. And in fact, the state of North Dakota is working on new initiatives between the North Dakota DOT and the North Dakota Council on Art, so some state-level initiatives to incorporate art and infrastructure. For all the reasons Troy had just noted, water towers are critical infrastructure, but what they do is provide a canvas for an opportunity for art. So in early 2020 is when we really kicked off efforts with Water Utility Department in the planning department to talk about this opportunity. And due to the pandemic, we had to pivot just slightly, but that also the timeline of the bid documents did not change. So we had spent kind of this time working with utility, our two departments together. Back in March, the Utilities Committee authorized staff to work with the Arts and Culture Commission to seek an artist to inform a design, or an artist for community outreach to inform a design. Then went on 2 months later to the Finance Committee, and then in July of 2020, a call for artists was released. A few things about that call for artists was it did include the timeline and critical dates, but really one important part was that this is really a community-based design. And so there was an ask that no designs were to be submitted and that the artists not work on any concepts or ideas until community engagement had started. The graphic up on your screen just talks a little bit about this process in a more graphic form, but I want to just point out that community-based design is the intent to create with people rather than for people. And so the golden colored spheres up on your screen with the arrows show how that iterative process happens. So what we were really interested in is getting the call for artists out as much as possible. We wanted as many people to see it and as many applicants to apply as we possibly could get. So up on your screen just lists the different avenues that we used in order to do that. We did receive 13 applications. 4 of them were local. All 4 of those local applicants were interviewed along with 1 non-local applicant. And Black Ink Creative Partners and Reach Partners were selected to work on the project, and they should be on if they're still with us, if there's any questions. So just talking about the community engagement process and how that actually happened, the design team kicked off in August. This was a very short project, but kicked off in August, and there were 4 what we've called community conversations with really intentional conversations with interested community members, creative meetings. There was a public survey done and use of social media. So all of that information received, the artist synthesized and put together and used that for the design iteration process. Again, we wanted to reach as many people as possible to join in these conversations, to be a part of it, to get their feedback in. So again, up on your screen is ways that we tried to get the word out. In October, Black Ink Creative Partners and Reach Partners, the artist team, presented this process in a lot more detail to the Arts and Culture Commission, talked about the results of that community engagement and how that led to the final designs. I'll get to the recommendation in a minute, but the Arts and Culture Commission made a recommendation to Mayor on a final design and color scheme that Mayor affirmed to include that design as an option within the bid documents. The next few slides I'll go through pretty quickly. They're pictures and not text, so hopefully a little more fun to look at. But the sketches just show, beginning with sketches, show the artist's iteration of the process and how through time you can see in community input and feedback and how that design changed. So this is what the Arts and Culture Commission reviewed at their October meeting. And this image is what the Arts and Culture Commission selected as that final design. This last image just puts together visually the artist process and coming up with the community engagement and their sketches and how that led to ultimately the final design.
Could you go back one just to the tower, what it looks like? Thank you. So that's a 360 view, basically?
Yep.
Okay. Now you can go to the end. Thank you.
So that concludes my slides, but we're here if you have any questions.
Any questions, commissioners? So we've broken this to 2 recommended motions, and I'd like us to start on the first motion. Commissioner Garrett.
I have a question real quick. With the art, what's the budget for the art? And will the bids come in, or whether no bids?
Yeah, I might turn that over to Troy.
Yeah, the budget for the art, we budgeted $20,000 for the initial contract. That came out of water utility funds, but two were selected, so I think it totaled 40. Are you talking the design or the?
If we put it on
if we put it on, okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So we didn't know exactly where it was going to come in, but but the first bid, one was 154,000 and the other was like 186. That they may be close on that second bid, but that's where the bids come in. But
Gotcha. Going forward, when we recondition these things, we look at the paint on it and we fix the paint and we recoat things.
Yep.
Would it add further cost down the line, having it painted in such a way, or would it be the same cost as refurbishing a white, a normal Farmore tower?
Well, down the road. So as far as the blasting, taking it off, that's going to probably be the same. And then the cost down the road is whatever we put on it. If it would be art like we're doing, that would be more cost if it's white with the.
That's a good point. So what you're saying is this isn't going to be the paint job forever. If we want to redo it down the line, that's coming off and we're putting something else back on.
Right.
Okay.
It won't matter.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the presentation, guys. It's really in depth, and I've been here a long time with you guys knowing about this. I'm glad now that the commissioners get to see the tremendous thought process that goes into water towers. I think we all look at those big white things in the sky and kind of think it's a simple thing to do, and even maybe not expensive, but the amount of work that goes into it in engineering and working with West Fargo and other communities and stuff like that, it's huge. And you guys have done a lot of work to make this happen. This mega tower is going to be awesome. It's going to be really better for our system. So for the first motion, I agree. I move the first motion that's suggested.
Is there a second?
Second.
Question or discussion on this? I want to thank you for a great job in this presentation. I know some people suggested different types of towers, but this is a very well thought out, decreased maintenance cost, do a variety of different things. And 2.5 million is a tremendous tower for us, so it should help us. And it's also interesting because that one water tower they just repainted, and just the ways in which they do that was fun to watch as they did on 45th Street. Commissioner Strand.
Just a simple question, Troy. When you say composite, are you talking the material?
Yeah.
Or are you
yes.
talking the combination of concrete and metal?
The combination of concrete and metal. So what they've done, like the spheroids that we have, they're all metal, and so that's what we call that when we do the composite. That stem that holds the tank in air is all concrete, and then the upper part is metal. So that the standard terminology is a composite.
Yep. Good.
Different materials.
Any other questions? Roll call vote, please.
Garrick,
Yes.
Preston,
Aye.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Second motion has to do to recommend it as a bid alternate, so you're not approving the bid at this point, but it's just as a bid alternate. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Commissioner Strand first, then Gary.
Go ahead. I'm just curious, is this the Arts and Culture Commission's desire to move forward prior to having an actual water tower that we're looking at?
It went through the Art Commission, and that was their final recommendation. What would go on the bid alternate would be exactly the design they have there, right? Is that Nicole?
Yes, our goal is to still keep this as build alternate in the plans that get rebid. So that's the motion in front of you.
Commissioner Garrett.
I think we need to be careful as a commission to not make expensive projects more expensive. So a lot of people will look at this and say, well, it's a $6 million tower. We're only looking to add $180,000 to it. What's the difference? Well, the difference is a whole lot of money for a lot of different people, and their taxes going up year after year. So we need to be careful with how we do that. And out of respect to the taxpayer, I think we paint this thing just like we paint all the other ones, and we can tell them that we're good stewards of their dollars.
Troy or Nicole, can you comment at the price of, if you painted it the way we presently have the one tower in South Fargo, is there a difference between 150 to 120, or what would be the difference?
Yeah.
I'll defer to Troy.
Yeah. So our base bid will be white, like we in South Fargo, the white with the City of Fargo logo. That would be the base. So if the alternate that'll be the option after we bid the project. The base bid would be building the tower with the City of Fargo logo, and then the paint would be an adder alternate as an option.
Thank you. Mr. Strand.
Just a really strange question, but when I've been to some conferences, I believe there are some cities that are doing lighting effect on towers as opposed, and I'm not talking campaign images on a water tower.
Sensitive issue for you, John.
But there, I think, are cities that are doing real creative lighting art on their tower. Have we explored that?
Yeah, absolutely. There is lots of I think Commissioner Preston went to one of those, there in the city of Cincinnati, there's like light art campaigns and not campaigns, but festivals and celebrations. And at some point in the future, we might be in front of you with a capital art project with the light. And I see Commissioner Garrett already saying no, but so light is a medium of choice. And I will say, talking to the utility or the water, there's also murals on water towers. There's a whole calendar that shows murals across the country. And, so what's been fun about this process is listening to our engineers and the Apex Engineering. And I mean, this is part of, you saw it in the city of Moorhead where they put a mural on there. And so it becomes kind of a way for cities to show team spirit and kind of excitement and vibrancy.
I mean, for Commissioner Pipcorn, wasn't it the president of NDSU asking for the bison to be up there? I thought I heard that rumor.
Yeah, I would say President Brashani did participate in one of the creative meetings and
Make him pay
nominated
for
the
it.
bison.
Mayor, I just have one quick question. If we were to not in any timely fashion receive an open acceptable bids for the tower, what would that do to this second option? Or is there a timeline on this art component, like how long it's good for?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I quite understand your question. So I think all we're asking for tonight is, can we put that mural in the bid package?
I hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Garrick?
No.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Now, do we have Desi Fleming on tonight? COVID update? Ah, she's there. Right? Or am I there?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'll try and make this pretty brief. First slide, as you can see by the graph, the COVID cases in the state as well as Cass County continue to decrease. As of today's results, Cass County has 388 active cases. The red section on the graph also notes the date which the mask mandates were initiated. With the active disease circulating, there is concern with the state mask mandate expiring January 18th. We do not know if the UK variant strains are circulating in our area, but they have been found in Minnesota. That, along with not having enough people vaccinated for herd immunity, makes continuation of the mask mandate order, along with other mitigation efforts, an important strategy to keeping our downward trajectory going. The positivity rate for Cass County is at 5.32%, continues to decrease. It remains slightly above the state, which is at 4.64%. Hospitalizations in the area also continue to decline. Statewide, we are now under 100 hospitalizations with 0 deaths for 3 consecutive days in North Dakota, so that's great. Death numbers for Cass County are at 177, with the state total being at 1,352 deaths. As of last Friday at 8 a.m., Governor Burgum changed the entire state to the moderate risk yellow category. This change allows for slightly larger capacity limits for bars and restaurants, along with larger scale events. If you need more information, it's like a 6-page document. You can visit the ndresponse.gov webpage and get that information. As far as vaccines, we continue to distribute vaccine and are currently working this week to finish up Group 1A, which is the healthcare worker and first responder group. We anticipate doing over 2,500 vaccines this week. It's important to note that different areas are moving through priority groups at different rates. So with our population in Cass being a little bit higher and our current allocations being a little bit lower, we're slightly behind others in the priority groupings. We hope to be moving to 1B, which is starts with the 75 years and older population within the next few weeks. And again, we encourage everyone to consider vaccination for COVID when your priority group is up, which will not only benefit you, but will also benefit the community at large. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of Desi? The question of the night, we talked about this in the past, and I just want to make the commission part of this decision. Mask mandate will run out the 18th, which is a week from today. And the question was, do we want to extend the mask mandate when it runs out on the 18th? My feeling in studying this process is we do not have enough vaccine in the community yet to get enough immunity in the community. I would be making a recommendation to the commission to extend it for another 30 days. Now, if the mayor, or if the governor overrides that and does something longer or whatever, I'd be happy to accommodate that. But my feeling with the commission is we'd have this 1 week, which we don't know, and I don't necessarily want to call you back in for emergency session, but I would be happy to if that's what you want. But it's just in discussion, and a couple of commissioners, I think we're not over it yet, and people are complying very well. The chief has not had as much difficulties in bars, and when I'm out in the population, I think people are doing a good job. So it's a question to the commission.
I certainly, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
I would certainly support extending it, and I think 1 month is the minimum, so we would probably need to revisit it at that point.
Well, it would come back to us at 30
Yeah.
days, so to me, that's an easy way for the commission to review it again and see what they
Sure.
wanted.
Sure. Would you like a motion to support that, or what are you asking for?
Yeah, that would be nice.
I would move contingent on the governor's office not extending the statewide mandate, that we reinstate the city of Fargo mask mandate for the next month from January 18th and through February 18th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Commissioner Strand?
I'm curious, Commissioner Preston and Mayor Mahoney, when you're talking the Fargo mandate, you're talking the original mandate we had that did not have enforcement.
That's correct, yeah.
So this extension would be of our original mandate without enforcement.
Right, the original language
Yep.
that was the mayor's original, yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, then it's not a mandate.
Not really. It is a mandate, and we had good compliance even without enforcement. And the chiefs had to do very little enforcement as far as that goes, Commissioner Pepcorn. So although all across the state, they did it without enforcement, and most mayors, 70% of them had good compliance.
Once again, this is a legal terminology thing, and so technically, it's not a mandate. So
No, it is a mandate. Technically, it is a mandate. It's just not with enforcement.
If you want to ask Eric Johnson, if it's a mandate is something where you have consequences, and this is, we don't enforce it, so it's not a mandate. So I don't want to get into this because this is legal mumbo jumbo, and we've been here, it's 7:55. So but let's clarify something. There is no penalties, so it's not a mandate. Thank you.
Eric Johnson?
Well, I mean, it is semantics. I mean, it is semantics, so whatever you're calling it, you're calling it. If, whatever you want to call it a mask mandate, but if there's no penalty, you can argue about what that means. But I think you've termed it as a mandate, so I guess that's what you call it.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Garrick?
No.
Pepcorn?
No.
Mahoney?
Yes. Item 26, application for property tax exemptions with improvements made on buildings. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Commissioner Garrick would like to discuss the amendment to the city's existing snowmobile ordinance. Commissioner Garrick, to explain, and you
Yeah.
have the ordinance in your packet.
It's the last 2 pages for all those who want to look at it. So there was a article in the paper about some guy snowmobiling through my neighborhood the other day, and it got a lot of attention. And so I kind of was curious about what the penalties are and things like that. And in looking at it, I found that the ordinance is extremely restrictive and has a heavy penalty on it. So I want everyone to consider maybe improving the ordinance and updating it for today's world. So first, it talks about allowing snowmobiles on the outskirts. So we have places like Deer Creek in South Fargo, or other places up in North Fargo that are very close to the border of Fargo and the outside, the rural areas. In many communities in North Dakota and Minnesota and other states, you're allowed to ride your snowmobile directly out to. You're not cruising the streets. You're not going down Broadway. You're not going on interstate. You're taking your snowmobile from point A to point B, which is from your property to wherever you are going to recreate, and then come back. So that has not been a problem in other cities, and I think we could probably look at doing it here. The second thing was, let me just read it here real quick. During snow emergencies. So we now have an ordinance in our city code that says that the mayor can declare a snow emergency, meaning you have to remove your vehicles, and there's other things along with that as well. Some people have snowmobiles and they have jobs that they can't miss. So if they can't use their vehicles to get to work, I think it'd be useful to be able to, in snow emergencies, to allow people to get to go get medicine, to go to jobs that they need to get food if it's a longer event, things like that, and even to go help people, if they're stuck. Again, this would just be a temporary time period that would be declared by the mayor to allow people to use their snowmobiles in town. The third thing is, and I really hope that people consider this one above all the other ones, is the fine and violation. So for this, it's a Class B misdemeanor, and if I'm correct, Eric, this is the heaviest penalty we could have for a city. This is the most harsh thing that we can apply to somebody as a city, and it's for riding your snowmobile on the streets. So that can be up to 30 days in jail and or a $1,500 fine, up to a $1,500 fine. I think we should treat this much more like any other violation. If I drive my go-kart on city streets, or if I have my golf cart out there on city streets, I would get a fine of some kind. I wouldn't be arrested and have it be put on my permanent record, and maybe lose my job for it, and things like that. I don't think that the majority of Fargo residents would support throwing someone in jail if they just got caught putting their snowmobile on the streets. So hopefully we can look at this. All I'm asking for is the ability to work with Eric Johnson and draft something. If you don't like what we draft, then you can vote it down. This simply gives me the ability, or us the ability, to work with the attorney here and draft something in ordinance.
Comments? Discussion?
Is that a motion?
Yes.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Preston?
I don't know if everybody got the email from the individual that lives up in North Fargo, but I can imagine this happening again, where a lot of snowmobiles are racing by, and if you happen to live close to the river or close to the entrance to the snowmobile tracks, it got to be a real hassle for that neighborhood up there. I don't see the need for this, so I won't support it.
Just in reference, I checked with West Fargo and Moorhead, and they do not allow snowmobiles in town, so just so you know. Horace does, however. Mr. Strand?
Mayor, it kind of reminds me of growing up in a little town in North Dakota where you didn't think twice about doing this, but we also were able to toboggan behind the cars. So you hook your rope up under the bumper and you go around the corners and all through downtown.
Oh, my.
I'm open to hearing what they come up with, Commissioner Gehrig. And I'd like to see, as our legal counsel looks at this, a definition of near city outskirts. Because we had a letter from somebody near Lindenwood Park that was near the riverfront and just had an onslaught of snowmobiles. So I'd like to see what definitionally outskirts means and what regulation there would be. And I certainly agree that $1,500 is pretty steep. Now, lastly, I'm guessing does the city own snowmobiles? The county does, I think.
County does for
emergencies,
rescues out in
yeah.
county. Well, I just oppose this because we're not a little city anymore. We're a big city, and we've got a lot of different people. How do you define the outskirts? Who do you define? Where do they drive? Where are they? And we're mixing walkers out there as well as people on bikes right now. And I just see this as a disaster waiting to happen. Snowmobiles go much too fast. You're in a helmet, you can't see. There's a variety of different reasons. There's no horns on them. I'll let you go ahead with the motion, but I'd vote against it because I feel it's a safety issue. Any other comments?
Yeah, I got one, Mayor. If we strictly went by safety for everything, and not freedom, and not the ability to recreate, and not the ability to go out with your family or anything like that, we wouldn't have motorcycles, which I ride. We wouldn't have golf carts that you could take on the links. That's very dangerous too. We wouldn't have anything. We'd all be bubble wrapped together, and there'd be a cop in every corner making sure you're walking slow and not chewing gum at the same time. Let's give me a break here. Snowmobiles are used all around the state all the time, and there's very little problems with it. We're not talking about drinking and driving. We're not talking about them ripping around Broadway. Not about going down interstate. We're talking about a little bit of freedom to be able to use your snowmobiles without trailing them up, taking them 2 blocks down the road, letting them go and go. Because if you're already if you're complaining about people whizzing by your house and you live close to a place where people go to do that thing, they're going to do it anyway. It's just not going to be driving quite as far. So all I'm asking for is the latitude, especially with number 3. That's number 3. I think it really needs to be looked at. And I don't know why the penalty was so harsh when it was put into law, but we can do better than that. And I don't think anyone should go to jail for these type of things.
Chief, can you explain why it would be a misdemeanor driving snowmobiles in town? Why would the effects of that?
Maybe I can.
Commissioner Strand, you can comment while he's coming to the desk.
Maybe I can help
Okay.
if the chief's at a loss. I might have a little more. The chief can override it. All I wanted to offer is this is a fairly old ordinance. Commissioner Garrick, when you asked me about it, was it 1969 it was initially? So I'm not even certain exactly what categories of crimes existed in 1969 from which to choose from. I really don't. So it's possible that that's the case. The other thing to bear in mind, although Commissioner Garrick is absolutely correct that the maximum penalty is 30 days in jail and a $1,500 fine, I wouldn't want anyone to walk away thinking that that's what the municipal court judge would impose as a penalty. I dare say he would impose the municipal judge would impose something, a fine and no jail time, particularly on a first offense. So, but nevertheless, you're absolutely right. That is the maximum penalty, and many other violations are simply non-criminal offenses where there's a monetary penalty. As to why it was designated as a misdemeanor at the time, I couldn't hazard a guess as to that.
Commissioner Strand had a comment?
The only question, I have a question, Mayor, and that's, I'd be curious if when we gather, as we gather, if we even decide to gather information, what other cities do. If there's examples or models of good and bad ideas out there, what others do that may be something we could study.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Garrick?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Preston?
No.
Mahoney?
Ooh, missed one.
Pipcorn first.
Pepcorn?
No.
Mahoney?
No.
Sorry.
Legislative update. Mike Redlinger or Bruce Grubbs going to explain this one?
Yeah, I'll take this one. Last week was the first full week, actually a partial week of the legislative session, and so this is kind of informational. We've begun to assemble a bill tracking spreadsheet. And as we've done in the past, we've directed each department head to review all of the bills that come out and identify which bills fall under their purview as the city's subject matter expert. And so each department head, as we speak, is creating their own tracking list by topic. And on Friday of each week, Kember will merge those lists into one master list to be emailed to commissioners, along with a meeting schedule out in Bismarck for the next week. Some operating procedures have changed, obviously, out in Bismarck due to COVID. They're encouraging testimony to be submitted electronically online. They do have, if you choose to give verbal testimony, the virtual ability to do that, which there hasn't been in the past. And so what you see on the screen here is a sample. These are just some snippets from 2019, but very easy to read. You can see starting from left to right the bill number, House bill numbers in the 1000 series, Senate bill numbers in the 2000 series. The status column that shows the status of the bill, that's constantly changing throughout the session. The title of the bill, a description that provides some detail as to what's in the bill, and then the comment portion that shows the staff recommended position on the bill and which department has done the review and made the recommendation, and then action, the type of follow-up things that need to occur. And so that's what you'll be seeing starting this Friday. This Friday will also be our first scheduled North Dakota League of Cities weekly call. We have a staff meeting just prior to that. The League of Cities call, I believe, is 2:00, and those will continue weekly throughout the session. And so Mike Redlinger was good enough to prepare a little packet of information that he laid down in front of you, and at your leisure you can look at that, and please email or ask with any questions you might have. And so that's just a brief update. Long way to go in the session. We look forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Mike? Team's getting tired, so make it quick.
Thank you, Commissioners. We'll be quite brief here. As Bruce mentioned, there's a laydown packet. Please ask any questions you have about that after you get a chance to take a look at that. In addition to the slides that we had presented at the joint legislative meeting back in December with the county and West Fargo, we've also included a piece from the North Dakota League of Cities. As they send additional information out, we'll make sure that the commissioners receive that. And then there's also an attachment number 3. This is a specific legislative proposal that the police department is proposing for overdose legislation. The police chief will just provide 30 seconds on that. But what I wanted to do was just show you some of the other priorities that our departments have advanced. These are simply going to be items that we consider. We're going to explore these items. These aren't in bill drafts. These other 3 on open records, liquor licenses, and the transit authority study. But we will spend a little bit of time trying to better understand what that might mean for the legislative session in 21. So with that, I'll have Chief Zabalski just very briefly talk about a bill that Representative Kim Koppelman is helping prepare for the police department. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very simply, we're just trying to address a gap that was created a couple of sessions ago, and the immunity clauses were added for overdose investigations and causation, focusing really on the drug traffickers who are delivering, not the addicts who are using with someone else who overdoses. These drug traffickers who are responsible for many overdoses, some of them fatal, and our overdoses in general have tripled since last year. There's no increased penalty for them. So we got broad support across the law enforcement spectrum and others just to work on creating an enhancement for someone who delivers and causes a fatal overdose.
Eric, are you up next? What do you got?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, recall we had the conversation with Representative Ben Koppelman about the firearm sales issue that felt, try not to take too much of your time. And if I don't mind, I'll just pass out some language just to help address the issue a bit.
So I think Ben Koppelman has contacted a couple of commissioners to discuss about the issue, and it's the firearms in the home. And he's trying to have state legislative action that would basically state law trumps city ordinances. And he is asking to move forward on that, knowing that we have referred it to the land development team to come up with an answer, which won't be ready for another year. So,
yeah, I mean, essentially, this is a little bit unusual, I must admit. The language I just presented to you is not his language. This was based on a virtual meeting we had last week where he's drafting a bill, was going to share it with me. I didn't receive anything from him, but in the conversation, this was the nature of the thing that he was proposing and looking for sort of the city of Fargo buy-in on this solution. And basically the idea is to not, there's a possibility that the bill that would be proposed would sort of rip the city's authority to zone in all respects firearm sales. And this is an accommodation proposed that we would just say, listen, all that the bill would restrict would be zoning ordinances that address the purchase, sale, and so forth, but still allowing cities the total power to create zoning regulations that affect, use categories and have compatible uses. And so it's an offer, I guess you might say, from this particular representative who's intending to introduce a bill, an offer to sort of provide a compromise. We've already been down a fairly long path with this, as the mayor just said, where we have an ordinance on the books. I've given an opinion several years ago, gotten also a supporting opinion from the independent counsel, and you've been addressing this in a couple of meetings over the last year or so. And as the mayor just said, it's sort of in the hands of the task force that's looking at our land development code. But nevertheless, I wanted to present this proposal to you and ask for any input that we can communicate along to Representative Koppelman and the state legislature.
Mr. Pepcourt.
Mr. Chair, just real quick, this is my concept, and I hope you can translate that to the legislature. I don't think we want to get into a big fight, obviously, but my concept is individuals buying and selling guns, that's none of our business. having a retail gun store in a neighborhood that is our business. The majority of people that I contact or have contacted me are opposed to having retail gun stores in neighborhoods. And to me, zoning, we limit lots of different things in neighborhoods especially, that you can't do that business there. Individually, one-on-one, to me, that's separate, but retail gun store, that's common sense. So I hope we can convey that. I don't know if everyone else agrees with me, but that's what I feel is appropriate, but we'll see. Thank you.
Commissioner Garrick.
You know how I feel. You know how I feel about it. So I'm not going to rehash how I feel about it. It's just if we overstep the state's going to push back, and I think that's what this is. You know.
Mr. Chair, just real quick though, but we as a city have the right to zone stuff in our own city. The legislature can't overrule us on how you can't have an adult store in your neighborhood. We do that, and free speech is anyway. Do you get what I'm saying? We can regulate stuff as a city that we want to. That's just and once again, we're getting into legal debates, but seriously, one-on-one, that's none of our business. But a retail gun store in a neighborhood, that is our business because that's our zoning. That's just my 2 cents.
Commissioner Preston.
So let me clarify one thing, and then I have a comment to make. Eric, are you saying this is kind of a fig leaf that we're sending to Koppelman, or this is what he is actually proposing?
I would say that only the opposite. Yeah, it's in effect, Representative Koppelman is just asking whether the city is willing to accommodate his request in the bill. He had introduced a bill in the last legislative session that didn't get past the House of Representatives, if I recall correctly, and so it did not pass.
So
he's going to introduce a separate bill very similar to that, and he's proposing sort of what you might say very focused language as a compromise.
This is his language.
And it would be language very similar to this. Like I said, I didn't get his bill language, but I wrote this up based on what he suggested during our meeting.
I would hope that we aren't moving forward with something with the city of Fargo stamp on it saying, good, we're good with this.
We would have to pass this out of the commission.
you would
So
have
whatever
to-
the opinion.
Yeah,
whatever
I
the
would
committee-
look
the
for-
commission
I don't
has
understand
would-
why you're writing it, is what I'm,
I'm writing it because in the conversation the mayor was in that meeting, we said we would present it to you for input.
okay,
So that we could report back appropriately. I didn't receive his language, but I did want to get the input nevertheless, and
So my biggest concern here is the state legislature, again, taking local control away. And that's not something, this is not where we want to go.
Yeah, and just so you know, we expressed that position to Representative Koppelman that the city commission has acted on this in more than one sort of forum, if you will. But nevertheless, he offered this suggestion, and we said we had a city commission meeting, and we'd take it to you for some input.
We're trying to bring this up to the commission so at least you hear what people are saying out there.
Okay.
So you have an opportunity to react. And we have not endorsed this at all. It's just something he's trying to do. And Eric has to make you aware of that. And I just told him, as far as I know, it's Nicole, it's in your bailiwick with the land development code. They are looking at it. And the last phase, I've known it dropped from this commission. So it's really not on our agenda on this commission now until that's done.
What my concern is with our city attorney drafting language and giving it to Koppelman, that he gets the idea that we're behind this.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
He's getting a little bit ahead of the horse because we don't have the ordinance yet from Koppelman. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to ask, and now you've led me to this question already. I find it very, very difficult to swallow preemptions pushed down our throat from the state legislature when they may not reflect what we want locally. You know, there's all kinds, last session, they preempted us. We can't even talk about plastic bags. They made a law, we can't do it. We can't even talk about it. So why don't they stay in Bismarck and let Fargo stay in Fargo and let counties and cities have their own authorities to have local control like they say we're supposed to be all about?
I did raise that issue with Representative Koppelman, for what it's worth. You know, and that's an ongoing dialogue that cities have with the state legislature.
Commissioner,
Commissioner Preston?
Mr. Chairman, parking meters, speed limit fines, all of that. We've had way too much local control taken away already.
Very good. I will remind you, the press is still in the room, so just remember Mayor Wallaker at one time in a comment he made, so. Anything else from the team at this time?
That helps, thank you.
I think you got pretty firm. Any other business? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Dave, who's going to win tonight, Alabama or Ohio?
The game might be over by the time we get home.